of the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 to order. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Harvey if he will give us an invocation, followed by the pledge by Commissioner Goddard.
Let us bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for a wonderful day, a day of opportunity for Putnam County. Decisions we make today, Father, will affect people's lives. And Father, we want to do it in a positive area. Father, we thank you for that we can call upon you for wisdom when we need it. We have prayed this morning and sought your face. And Father, we have sought wisdom from you. And today, Father, let us be in decency and in order as we conduct this meeting. And bless our chairman and bless all the staff for the work that they've done to prepare for this meeting. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Harvey, and thank you, Commissioner Goddard. We're going to move into public comment. This portion of the agenda is not designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board, allows them to. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation. Please hold your comments to 3 minutes. And in addition to that, because this is a Zoom meeting or a virtual meeting, we need to put on there that public comment can be made through email at BOCC comments at putnam-fl.com. Is that the correct address? I don't see Laura. Did she leave us? BOCC meeting comments at putnam-fl.com. I'm waiting for Laura to rejoin us because she has I know she has a public comment.
Ms. Parsons is working with that citizen that's requested access into the meeting.
Okay. We'll wait on her just a second because she has our public comments. Julianne, do you have that public comment that you could read?
Yes, sir. I believe I do.
Okay. Would you go ahead and read that email, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Comment is from Patricia Gatos, Gaydos, 203 Saratoga Drive, Satsuma, Florida, 32189. I am from Maryland, a divided state during the Civil War, a state in which many neighbors, friends, and sometimes members of the same family were on opposing sides of the fight. Statutes are still all over my old neighborhood, a constant reminder of our tragic past. I now live in Putnam County and sometimes reflect on the Confederate statute that resides on the courthouse lawn. To me, all of these statutes are a constant reminder of how far we have come as a group of people. Leonard said, "I know what I am. I am trying to bring unity. Removing the statutes will only result in animosity. Shame on Mayor Hill for antagonizing these children. We have enough friction between the liberals and the conservatives, let alone the COVID virus, to even consider allowing a rally at this time. It sounds like he is encouraging the protesters to come to Palatka, as well as to increase the number of virus victims. A statue is only a mark in time. We cannot change the past. We can only learn from it." Pat Gadios Grillo.
Okay. Do you have any other public comment at this time?
The citizen, I believe, is signing in.
I don't see him yet.
No, I talked with him and he said if you open it up later after the discussion regarding the CARES Act small business opportunity, then he would email in again for the information.
Okay, so as of now, that's all our public comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Parson. We're we're going to move to item 3 on the BOCC workshop, and going to start with the USDA lease final terms and agreement. Ms. Young, are you taking that for us this morning?
Yes, sir, I am. After a long year of negotiations with the USDA, we have reached final terms and conditions. As you will see, and if you'll remember, we put a bid out back in fall of 19, and we awarded that bid through the BOCC on the November 26th meeting. That bid was to cover the required construction renovations and upgrades to the building that were stipulation of the USDA to remain in the building. Of course, our award was contingent upon contract execution, mutually agreed upon terms and conditions. So the bid amount that we're working on is $278,750 for the construction portion of the renovations for the USDA. And of that, the USDA has deemed that they will cover $154,000, $54,500, and that they will pay it in a lump sum upon completion of the renovation work. That leaves the county's portions of the renovation work to be $124,250, which would be paid from general fund reserves. We've also finalized the negotiated rental rate. They're currently at $13 a square foot. That will be increased for years 1 through 3 to $16 a square foot. And then from years 4 to 10, it would be an agreed upon $17 per square foot. And so, which would give you the annual rental rate of $44,192. These are their conditions in order to maintain their presence here in Putnam County. They do provide a large number of services for our agricultural community, as well as neighboring counties' agricultural communities. So at this point, the USDA is pulling back the number of branches they have, and they have deemed that Putnam could serve several of our surrounding counties in addition to Putnam if we engage in this lease agreement. So at this point, I need to know what the board's desires are.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reached out last night to get some more information on this. And let me just, I like numbers, and I know a lot of y'all like numbers too. So Julianne, I just have a couple questions here. The bottom line here is for the first 3 years, 1 to 3, we're going to be seeing a rent of around $44,000, correct?
That's correct, $44,192.
In the next 7 years, we're going to be seeing a rent of somewhere around right close to $47,000 a year.
$46,954.
Close to 47. If you add $6, 46. So my point is this: when you add all that up, it looks like our rent is going to be somewhere in the north of $561,000 in a 10-year period. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we have an investment from them of $154,000, which means that they're going to be paying right at $715,000 $715,000 in a 10-year period invested in Putnam County, and their presence stays here as long as Putnam County puts in $124,250 for the improvements. So we're going to see on this a 6-fold return on investment if we spend $124,250 and we keep a vital organization in our community. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think my comments speak for themselves. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm just very appreciative that they're willing to pitch in and not ask us to furnish them a space for nothing, because they are a vital part of the agricultural community around here. So I'm very appreciative of this deal. I think it's a very good deal that Ms. Young has negotiated for us here, and kudos to her and Mr. Suggs for getting that done. Is there any other comment on this? If not, the chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Pickens. Commissioner Pickens. You're muted, Bill.
Thank Ms. Young for all her efforts and stuff for this lease. I know it's taken a long time, and thank you, Commissioner Harvey. I was reached out to Ms. Young this morning. We just didn't hook up, and I wanted to ask pretty much those same questions to make sure I understood, that they have an initial investment. We do too, but then we would still receive these rent factors from year 1 to 3, and then the raised rent from 4 to 10. So thank you, Larry, for asking those questions. That's what I wanted to verify. So I'm good with it.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls, did you have a comment, sir?
Yes, I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly. Larry got to the punchline before I did. I think it's a great deal. I don't think it really requires a whole lot of brain work here. So I would move that we approve it.
I second it, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rawls and a second by Commissioner Harvey that we approve the lease and for the signature. All those, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. The next.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say one thing, with everything that's going on with COVID, we're getting an influx of anywhere from 700, 900 people a day in Florida. Agriculture is going to be a huge part of our future going forward. And I think that really is what really needs to resonate for this conversation. Even if we were net zero on the gain, the value proposition they provide far outweighs the cost that it might cost in the future. But I think great deal. Good job for Julianne negotiating the contract.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls. With that being said, we're going to move on to the next item, which is the Small Business Grant Program. On the line with it is Matthew Urchel with Whit O'Brien, who has worked with the staff this week to try and come up with a start of a plan, and they have questions. So, Commissioner Pickens, were you able to download this and print it out?
No, I was not. So
okay.
Advantage. I did review it a couple times last night, but it's all from memory. So
okay. Well, we're going to move into this discussion, and Ms. Young, are you going to take this to start with?
Yes, sir. I'll start us off.
That's fine. We have the whole team here, so we got you, Chairman.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So just to recap, our administrative cares team, Mr. Suggs, Mr. Sam, Jim, myself, have been working since the Friday, June 24th meeting, where the BOCC called a special workshop and expressed desire to create and implement a small business grant/loan program. Our team has worked with the CARES consultant multiple times over the last 10 days. We've assembled, most recently finalized Friday at 4, the team was together. And the CARES Act consultant, along with staff, has put together a framework, a draft framework for you based on best practices in our area and within the counties for this type of program. With that said, Mr. Suggs and the team felt passionate about giving the board every opportunity they can for items that would keep us within best practices, but are still variables that we could control. So we've highlighted them, and the consultant who's with us today has also put some commentary about their recommendations to the board. But these are items that we have some flexibility on without necessarily varying a whole lot from these established best practices with these federal grant or loan programs. And so with that, if Mr. Suggs has anything additional, then we'll turn it over to Matthew, who's here with us from Whit O'Brien. And maybe he can take us through just a little bit of this program and explain how it would function based on the direction that the board gave us at the last meeting.
Okay. My question would be, would Matthew rather us go through and answer his questions first, or would he like to go through it and we answer his questions highlighted as we go? Matthew, would you let me know how you'd like to handle that?
Yes, sir. So if everybody's had a chance to review the documentation, I'm happy to get some of those considerations or your preference. I can walk through the framework and highlight specific points where we need a little bit of feedback or decisions.
Okay, well, if it pleases the commission, we'll just go down the list, and all the highlighted questions, we'll just get them answered. And then Matthew can give us a better overview of how the program will work from there, if that suits everybody.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
Matthew was breaking up real bad and I could barely hear him. Did anybody else catch that?
Yeah, basically he said we could do it either way, that we could go ahead and answer the questions and then try to get his overview, or we could, either way we wanted to do it. So I just felt it would be easier because of the little bit of problem he's having with audio if we just went ahead and answered his questions. Are you hearing us okay, Matthew? We're having a little problem hearing you.
I can. I'm going to call in on my phone, so that might be a little bit better. You might be able to hear me better. Okay.
Well, as long as you can hear us good, we'll go ahead. I'll try to get this started for you. If you look on the first page here, which is page 11 of your packet, he's got some things highlighted. And the first one it looks like is the maximum number of employees of business to be considered an eligible small business. And he suggests either 50 or 100, and he's got 50 in there. So does the commissioners want to leave the 50 in there?
I do.
Okay, Commissioner Pickens?
Do we have any idea how many businesses would have 50 people?
Well, it'd be
up to 50.
Yeah, the 50 would be the maximum amount of employees allowed, Commissioner Pickens. So I'm not so sure that I think I'm with Commissioner Goddard on this one to maybe leave it at the 50. And if we don't use up the money, we'll extend the program out to the people over 50. That way I think from day one, it's been the small business we've been trying to cover. Commissioner Harvey, I see you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think 50 is fine, but I think we need to look at the March 1 date, not July 1, because some businesses, well, I don't know if it matters a whole lot, but I think we need to change that date to March 1.
Which date is that, Commissioner? I see on the first line, it says that was in operation on or before March 1st.
Yeah, but down there where it says eligible applicants, it says employed and paying no more than 50 full-time and part-time employees as of July 1, 2020.
Okay, so you want to move that back to March 1st also?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chairman Turner?
Yes.
I know that Commissioner Pickens was having some trouble downloading that. We have the option to share the screen so that you might be able to see these. Would you like us to do that?
Yeah, if you can do that, I'd love for that to happen.
Give us
Commissioner Pickens and for the public to see on the live feed.
Yeah,
yes,
this is the first time I've not been able to download something and print it out. So I was really surprised.
Can you see that, Commissioner Pickens?
Yes, yeah, I can.
Okay, so I was down up. Did you want to say something, Julie? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Chairman. I actually need you to back up one because we did skip the first highlighted section, and that section is just, we need the board to determine how long you want the application period to last. We selected 10 days, but it's obviously up to you guys.
I got a question.
Commissioner Harvey, did you have something to say, sir?
I said I'm good with the 10 days. That gives them time, I believe.
I have a question.
Commissioner Rawls?
Did Clay County adopted theirs, correct?
I can't tell you if they did or not.
They have recently launched their small business program.
Okay, and from what I understand, they've received a couple hundred applicants from businesses. Is that correct?
I don't know the total number. I do have a conversation with them later today. I could certainly follow up with you.
Okay. Can I get a copy of theirs that I'd requested at the last meeting? You said you'd make that available once they adopted it. So I'd like to see a copy of theirs. How long did they leave theirs open for?
I actually don't know. I could also get back to you on that one.
All right.
Commissioner Rawl, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Harvey?
I went online yesterday, Laura and I did, and downloaded Clay County's. I don't see how far it was open for, but Commissioner Rawls, if you're able to get on another computer, it's right there on their home page.
Well, he can just send it to me when he gets a chance, and I'll be speaking with him later this afternoon. The question goes to, I don't know if 10 days is enough. I don't know why would we restrict it to 10 days. Right now people are in precarious situations. Not everybody's able to get information as fast as they used to. Is it 10 calendar days, 10 business days? I think we need to take this thing out more than 10 days. You're having it from the 10th to the 21st just, to me, doesn't really do a whole lot. I don't know why we would restrict it to such a few days. I mean, the PPP program is still open. It's been open for how long?
Well, it's closed several times and reopened, but Commissioner Rawls, I think in this commissioner's opinion, I believe that it would be good to see how much interest we're going to have, and do we need to refund the program? Do we need to extend the program? If we don't have hardly any interest during those days, do we need to extend it and advertise it better? What do we need to do? So, we don't need to reduce it to 10 days and say, well, let's have a meeting to discuss it. I would agree to 30 days, and let's take a look at it in 10 days and see what kind of response we have, and maybe have to make an adjustment. But I don't see the reason to have a restriction of 10 days. That's just my 2 cents worth. But also, thank you for those comments. Is any other commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Pickens.
I guess the particular 10 days, I'm just asking why. Is that what some other counties have done, or that would just seemed like it was enough time for people to apply? And then probably along Commissioner Rawls on what happens. I guess we approved 1,000 applications. Is that correct? If there's only 500, then where do we go from there? Do we extend it again, or what would happen if that happens?
It would depend on what the commission voted on, and I don't really have any. If the commission wants to open it up for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or a month or whatever, I don't think that really. I think we're getting bogged down on something that just doesn't really matter here, guys. I think that we need to get the program started and moving is what the biggest thing is. And then, if we've got to meet again because we don't have enough applications, or we need to redo something to make it work better or whatever, I just see doing it sooner than later myself. It's up to y'all. Commissioner Harvey, I see you holding your hand up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what Commissioner Rawls wants to do. Somebody's got a lot of feedback on their. I understand what Commissioner Rawls wants to do, but I think if we go out till September 10th, then we're going to be late on getting these checks back to the public, back to our business owners. So I like the first round, and then we can get these checks out. And if we need to re-up it, let's re-up it for another date to satisfy the next requirement. But I think we should go ahead and try to get these checks out as soon as possible.
I'm confused.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls.
How does extending the date slow down getting checks out? If we make it 30 days, why can't we start sending checks out tomorrow versus 10 days and getting checks out tomorrow? I don't understand how one affects the other.
I don't think it does, Commissioner Rawls. I think that we can. I think that Commissioner Harvey was maybe assuming that we were going to finish the program and then send out checks instead of sending them out as they're approved. Commissioner Harvey, I see you. Yes, sir.
On page 12, the bottom paragraph. If you look at page 12, the bottom paragraph, the second line from the bottom, funds will within 10 to 15 days of application period closure.
We're not on page 12. Yeah, we're not there. I'm with you. We're not there yet.
But if we go ahead and set it 30 days, then we're going to have 40 to 45 days.
I don't agree with the 10 to 15 days myself.
Okay, I don't either, but let's, okay, that's fine. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Harvey, you still have the floor, sir. Do you want, or are you done?
Well, I guess, if the consensus is some people don't agree with the 10 to 15 business days after the application period closure, then we need to address that before we address the time frame of when the applications are over. So why don't we just determine now that checks can be, as soon as the applications come in and they're verified, checks can go out. Is that?
That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, excuse me, Mr. Commissioner Harvey, but I agree there that once they start coming in, rather than have them all at one time as, okay, we're done, and then distribute them, I think you ought to do it as they go, as long as they're qualified.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm really good.
If y'all give me a second, please. Mr. Matthew's wanting to talk, I believe. Matthew, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So the idea here was, and I am receiving the message that you want this to be a rolling basis of review. The idea here was, if it was a first come, first serve, and we were anticipating getting over 1,000 applicants, we wanted a cutoff point to be able to measure all the applicants received, sort through the eligibility, and then process during the application period. Obviously we may receive, if you keep it open and you do it on a rolling basis, you may have some of the initial submissions that don't meet the base eligibility criteria, or they didn't provide enough information. And so you want to give everybody kind of that competitive pool. But you can do it on a rolling basis. That's not, an issue. What's the word, impediment? You can do that. Because I was looking at it through the lens of anticipating receiving greater than 1,000 applications. If we think we're only going to receive about 1,000, we can keep it open and go through a rolling basis.
Okay. I'm having some difficulty seeing anybody with this thing, with this on the screen, and so commissioners, at this point, would you please either raise your hand on your screen, or would you Jacob, could you come in here a minute, please? I can't see who all's on there right now, and I can't see my commissioners.
I got you.
I concur.
Okay, so you can do that, and you can go down right here.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
Is that better for you?
Yeah, that'll work for now.
Okay.
But I can't line up where all 5 of my commissioners
You
are
can't
on.
pick and choose. Though.
Okay, all right, that'll work.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for that, having a little technical difficulty, commissioners. Okay, so it sounds to me like what we want to do is go to the next page, which is page 12, and we need to fix the deal to where it's a rolling deadline instead of a hard deadline, and that we want to go out. Could we go out 14 days at this point, Mr. Rawls? Would that suit you?
That'd be fine.
Okay, and so if we go out 14 days instead of 10, and we make it a rolling date. And with that, we need to go back to the previous page and go down the page answering questions with that under those premises. So we're going to change the August 21st deadline to the August the 25th, I guess.
Okay.
Yes.
And those are calendar days, right? So
yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they're going to be able to send them online for sure.
Right.
So they can do that on a weekend. Commissioner Harvey, did I see you have your hand raised, sir? Were you done, Commissioner Pickens?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey.
Well, if it's going to be a rolling thing as they come in, we could just go to 30 days to a September date, maybe September 10th would be appropriate.
I don't have any problems either way, Commissioner Harvey. I was just kind of wanting to have some kind of a closer date that we could address if we run into problems. I feel like there's going to be some unforeseen problems that we couldn't see here, and I wanted to be able to address them in 2 weeks. And then we can always extend it out as far as anybody needs to after that. But it'll kind of give us a little closer deadline to make sure everything's working like we want it to work.
I'm good then. I'm good with August 5th.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that.
Okay, and so with that being said, we agreed to the 50 employees. Is that correct?
I concur.
That's
Okay,
fine.
and 1099 employees are not included in the count. Publicly traded companies are not considered eligible, or nonprofits.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Why would 1099 employees not be included? I'm trying to work through my mind on.
Because they can file their own, Commissioner Rawls.
What do you mean?
1099 employees, I think, are eligible for this, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I thought you said, okay, I thought you said they're not, okay.
They're not eligible to be included in somebody's 50. In other words, somebody, it's not included in the employee count for the 50 employees.
Right, okay.
Okay. And the businesses cannot be part of a larger business that would exceed the 50 employees.
Right.
Public traded companies are not considered eligible, or nonprofits are not considered eligible. The next question is account payables, including utilities, vendors, suppliers of working capital expenses paid between March 1st and October 31st are eligible. Rent, mortgage payments paid or to be paid between March 1st and 2020, October 31st, 2020 are eligible. Activities related to adjustment to the delivery of service such as PPEs, equipment to enforce social distancing, touchless point of sale systems, hardware and software to adjust ordering and sales, and etc. are included or eligible. Grant awards cannot be used for the following items: providing funds directly or indirectly, or dividend distribution, return of capital, or otherwise to owners, partners, or shareholders of business enterprise. Next question, this one was flagged. It says payroll expenses, employee pay. This includes payments to 1099 employees and to those identified as subcontractors. And that's the reason that he says he did that was because we can't duplicate benefits for this program, and those are the benefits that was used for the PPP program, and so that'll keep us from duplicating those benefits. The next one will be payment of any local, school, district, state, or other federal tax obligations. And
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, sir. I need to ask a question to Matthew. Matthew, I'm going to have a lot of questions as we go through this. To be honest with you, I think it's very onerous. But how does a Treasury Act, because it was very vague, it was only about 7 items when it first came out, does it really address that the business can't make payments? For example, Matthew, when I had my insurance agency, because we're going to talk about this going forward here in a few minutes, but I don't believe we should require a bunch of information. But whether I pay rent, or whether I pay my tax bill, or whether I pay my utility bill, I don't think that's any business of the county if we're doing grants. Now, I understand loans, and it says loans in this document because I saw where you got some of this from Clay County, but truly, this is a grant program. And I would be happy if a business said, this is the only way I can pay my local taxes that I'm due. I can handle everything else, but I need $3,000 to pay my taxes. I don't have a problem with that. And unless you can prove to me that by law, when it first came out, that the Treasury said we can't, I don't see how we can. I would encourage people to pay what they owe. So Matthew, Mr. Chairman, would Matthew be allowed to explain that situation?
Yes, sir. That'd be fine. But if you don't mind, Commissioner Harvey, I'd like for you to know that if we look at this from a realistic standpoint, instead of getting bogged down in the weeds, any business that has all the things that we just allowed to be eligible, if they're not spending $3,000 from the 1st of March to the 30th of October, they're not a business. I mean, because you can do rent, you can do mortgage payments. I mean, basically, I'm going back to that on my list here. They can spend it on business account payables, including utilities, vendors, suppliers. So they can spend it on working capital expenses paid or to be paid by from March 1st to October 31st. If they're not going to spend $3,000 on all those items put together, I don't see how they could call themselves a business at all.
Well, I'm not referring to that. I'm more referring to us telling them they cannot make a payment of a local school district, state, or federal tax obligation.
But don't you think, sir, that we could free that money up by paying all this other stuff, and then they could take their other money they have and pay their tax obligations?
Yes, sir, I do.
That would be my only comment would be that I think that perhaps if we give them enough money to free up these other funds, they could use that. And I'm going to ask Matthew the question is, I don't know that the CARES Act itself doesn't eliminate. I know the PPP, you weren't allowed to pay taxes with it, I think, other than payroll taxes. But Matthew, would you comment on that, please, sir?
Sure. So I'll address the tax issue, and then I'll also address the consideration around the payroll. The tax issue is tied to revenue replacement. So you're not actually able to use the funds for revenue replacement. And as a result, the payment of taxes would actually serve as revenue replacement. As a matter of fact, the FAQ documents that were released by the Treasury specifically spell out that issuance of tax rebates or using individual assistance programs to supply the ability to pay taxes is not an allowable expense. So that's why we have that in there. The payroll expenses is to try to mitigate the risk of duplication of benefits. So it's not to say that it would automatically be a duplication of benefits. What we're trying to do is create as administratively lean as a program as possible so that we have to collect the least amount of documentation as possible. So as the chairman stated, we felt like we've allowed enough expenses to be allowable that by straying away from payroll expenses as an eligible use of funds, we don't have to actually go through everybody's PPP loan forgiveness statements to validate how they actually utilize that funding compared.
Mr. Chairman, I think we lost Matthew.
I'm going to say
Matthew, I think, there you go. Try again, Matthew. I think you got muted.
So the payroll expenses, it's just to try to mitigate the risk of duplicating benefits. It's not actually that it would be a duplication of benefit. So we're just trying to collect as least amount of documentation as possible. Try not to be invasive and have to dig through a bunch of PPP loan forgiveness statements from the businesses. And again, on the taxes, that's because of the guidance that was released by the Treasury as it relates to using the funds to pay for local taxes. And we've extended that to include the school district's estate, since the state is also a recipient and they're the actual recipient of these funds, and it was passed down to the county.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm good on that, and I agree with you that if we give them $3,000, they'll be able to free up money. If they owe taxes, they can pay it out of their pot of money and not our pot. I understand that, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Harvey. So that gets us through the first page, unless anybody has anything further on page 11 of the packet, and we'll move on to page 12. I guess the application process, we've already settled. That's going to go through the 25th instead of the 21st. From 10 a.m. on August 10th, 2020 through the 25th. I think we already decided that earlier.
Mr.
Chairman?
Mr. Rawls.
I was muted. I didn't realize I was trying to stop there for a second. Nonprofits are excluded. Are they going to be included at some point?
I don't know that they are or not. Kind of depends on how many businesses we have first, in my opinion, but that's certainly up to the commission.
Okay.
Matthew, is there any reason why a nonprofit was excluded other than we were trying to do businesses to start with?
No, just that consideration that we were just trying to do for-profit businesses to start with.
Well,
obviously,
nonprofits are businesses too, and they have overhead just like everybody else, and they provide valuable services to our community.
I completely agree. I think it certainly opens up how many businesses would certainly apply. Nonprofit organizations also include healthcare providers in many cases.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I wonder if we should not include nonprofits in this.
Well, I don't have a problem either way. It'd be up to the commission which way they wanted to do as a vote, but I think we need to first find out, well, I don't know, either way, Commissioner, whatever the board wants to do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
I agree that I think there are some nonprofits that are very good in the community that have operating expenses that probably need to be met. I would like to see us continue with this process first and come back at a later date and address those. Because I know some nonprofits are still receiving money and they're not hurting as bad as others, but I know our businesses are. So I think we can always come back to the trough, if you will, Commissioner Rawls, and we can bring that up. And, Mr. Matthew mentioned the healthcare industry, but some of the healthcare industry people are getting money from other sources.
You got Lee Conley House, SMA.
No, I fully get you, and I understand that. I think we just need to keep the pot separate a little bit and move forward with the businesses, and then come back and we can rewrite it for a nonprofit that we feel, we can identify that is doing something good in the community that needs some help.
Okay.
Thank you,
Are you okay with that, Commissioner Rawls, or do we need to do a motion?
No, I personally think that we should include it, but if it's a consensus not to, then I'll make a motion that we include nonprofits in it. If I can get a second.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Sounds like it dies for lack of a second at this time.
I have a question. I had to step out a minute, but if I understood correctly, if we do not do it in this particular procedure that we're approving now, we can look at it later. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, as a separate program.
Okay.
Can I ask, what does a separate program cost us to set up?
I don't know, Commissioner Rawls, but probably not any more than this one here. Well, now that we have because you can't use the same set of rules that we're using today for nonprofits, because there's going to have to be some kind of a set of rules put up where what they qualify and don't qualify for too, or what their eligibility would be versus non-eligibility. And, I'm with you. I think that the nonprofits do need some, but it's going to have to be under a different set of rules than the for-profit businesses are. I mean, it's just different eligibilities. Do we let anybody that's a nonprofit get $3,000? A nonprofit that may not have collected $3,000 in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, there's got to be a different set of guidelines and a different set of rules for a nonprofit to make them eligible. That's just my opinion now. So if somebody else has, the floor is open for anybody that has a difference of opinion.
I'll take the floor.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls.
All right. So Matthew, are you familiar with Clay County's program, or is somebody else handling that?
I do have a staff member who's leading the majority of that development. That said, I could become a quick study after conversing with them further, but I have a general understanding of the framework that we designed.
They set aside a tranche of money specifically for nonprofits, and and really the nonprofits are taken as hard a hit, if not harder, than businesses, because most of them are dependent upon grants or donations. Obviously, people that aren't working. If you just assume that 20% of our workforce, which is nationally what we're looking at, has been hit, that means that their revenues will be down by at least 20%. But then you take a look at the uptick in crime, domestic violence, substance abuse. You've got the Life Church. They're dependent on grants and donations. I already mentioned SMA and Lee Conley House. With their overheads going. I think we really
Hello, Commissioner Rawls, are you there?
Yeah, I'm on a Wi-Fi feed. Yeah, can you hear me?
I got you now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't have a great feed Wi-Fi, but I think that we really should consider allowing the nonprofits to come in. Their business is just like anybody else.
Well, Commissioner Rawls, as I said earlier, I don't know if your Wi-Fi was working or not. So I would like to say that I have no problem with trying to identify a tranche of this money for nonprofit businesses, but we're going to have to come up with additional eligibility requirements because nonprofit businesses don't meet any of most of these requirements that we already have here. So yes, Matthew, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, Chairman. So in Clay County, they did do it as a separate program because of those exact considerations. The first round of funding that they actually made available to nonprofits was a specified pool of applicants. So it wasn't an open application. Mm-hmm. There were specific nonprofits that they actually provided assistance to. And then the second round was to provide them with food assistance programs, PPE, and that was an open application. But the initial distribution was a select focused group of nonprofit organizations. And there are specific considerations around what other funding they may have actually received. So the program guidelines would have to be a little different. We would also have to collect some additional information from them about what funding they've received to date.
Matthew, is Clay County one of the counties that received their money in the first tranche back in March?
They received the same 25%.
Okay, so they're smaller than 500,000.
That's correct.
Okay, good. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm reading from Clay County's website. It says some examples of eligible requests include services, organizations that provide food, essential supplies, PPE, medical access to individuals impacted by COVID-19. There we go again. Hang on. Is that better?
I got you. Go
Hello?
ahead. Hello, I got you. Now I've lost you.
So basically what it says is
You're breaking in and out on me, Commissioner Rawls. I've lost you again, sir. I don't know if you can hear us or not, Commissioner Rawls, but we can't hear you. So while you're working on trying to get that back, like I said earlier, I have no problem with that.
They restricted their list.
We have Commissioner Rawls. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now. I do not have you now.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, I heard that, but
I was close to the router as I can get. All right. So can you hear me now? Are we good?
You're in and out, but I got you for now, sir.
All right. Basically, I think we should take a look at what Clay County did and try to mirror that. We do have organizations that need help, and we're not talking about many of them. I think that we should allow them. Feed the Need, for instance, would be another one. The group that's doing all the feeding up there on Highway 17 North.
Well, as I said earlier, I have no problem with that at all, but I think we need to listen to Matthew. It needs to be a separate program. Commissioner Harvey, did you raise your hand?
I did, sir, and I agree. Commissioner Rawls, I share your passion for some of the organizations that you mentioned. I'd like to see a copy of that Clay County one, and let's put that on the agenda really quick so we can move that forward maybe next week and start, but let's get this one up and running today.
Okay, so
Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. From my memory, what I understand that we would put together like the business plan for the CARES Act money and submit it to see if it's going to be approved. Is that correct?
Well, we've already received this $3 million, and unless Matthew says different, we're pretty sure this one will pass. Matthew, aren't you fairly confident that what we're doing today will pass muster?
Absolutely, and the majority of the counties in Florida are running small business grant programs using some of their proceeds.
Okay,
Mr.
so then for the next 75% of maybe available funds, we'll have another business plan that we'll send. Is that correct?
That's right. I think we'll work with the county staff and then obviously with you all to frame up exactly what that looks like, how much is going to be provided to to cities or what other community-based initiatives you actually want to stand up. But that is the intention.
Okay, so from what I understand, if we have 1,000 applicants, which we may or may not, it would use this particular pool of money, all of it, right? Almost all of it.
As it's currently designed, that's correct, sir.
Okay, so worst case scenario is we don't, and then we still have some extra money. So I think it would be to present this and then to come back and make sure that we take a serious look at our options and definitely include the nonprofits in the second group. If that makes sense. Is that?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, so back to the task at hand here today, trying to get the business portion of this back in order. If you move down to page 12, it's showing on your screen. It says that most recently signed, that the last thing that they need, the applicants will be requested or required to provide the following information. And there's a list of them there. And then the last one that's highlighted, and the question was, is this validates that federal taxes were paid, a requirement for many federally funded small business grant programs, such as SBA's PPP and EIDL. Alternative would be to have the business owner self-certify that they do not have any federal tax liens, but have a higher competence risk as a result, compliance risk as a result. I can't read it on the screen. Whoever's running this, could you send it down a little further? Whoever's scrolling the screen. There you go. Thank you. That's good. Right there. Good. So the alternative would be to have the business owner self-certify, but with a higher compliance risk as a result. So I guess we need to answer that question. Do we want to let them Commissioner Harvey?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if you will. I have some concerns up top, and then if we can answer that now, the question you have on the table, or we can come back to it.
No, sir, we'll do whatever you want to, sir.
Okay, well, let me start up at the top under the application process. I feel very strongly that the online application is a good program, but we also need to have paper applications. I know that's going to give some people heartburn, but we're in a rural area and we need to be able to provide multiple formats for our businesses to handle. So I'd like for us to insert paper applications. They can be picked up at our office, dropped off at our office in a box, maybe, and then sent to the proper channels. We also need to fix the August 21st to August 25th.
Yes, sir. I said that earlier.
Okay, thank you. And then under the applicants, and here's where I have
Commissioner Harvey, before we leave that, sir, if we could, so I won't have to back up on your issues. I totally agree with the application. I think they ought to be able to fill it out, print it out, or pick one up. So that way they can, I'd like to see all three available. I'd like to see them be able to submit it online, print it out online, or come by the office and pick one up. Commissioner Pickens?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but along those lines, as probably in the whole county, but more so West Putnam and South Putnam, the diversity, social diversity. So we've got Hispanics, Laotians, Vietnamese in South Putnam. Some of them may be limited in speaking English? How would we address that? Do they have a Spanish edition of this, or would they just have to get some help from somebody?
I would recommend at this time for them to get help. And the only reason I say that, Commissioner Pickens, is because if we delay this program long enough to put all this together in 3 or 4 different languages, it may take a little while for us to get it done. So, I think I'd like for the program to go ahead and get started if possible.
Okay.
With you.
Matthew, I see you raised your hand.
I want to maybe get a little more feedback on the paper application component. And the reason I bring this up is because on an online application, you can require specific fields. On a paper application, you obviously can't do that. And so for a consideration of ensuring that you're getting as complete of an application as possible the first time around without having a lot of administrative burden and chasing down missing details, the online application helps facilitate that. Now, the majority of the grant programs, around the country, even Florida's reemployment is now online. They're no longer doing the paper aspect of it. And so I'm just want to maybe get some of your feedback there. I think that the online submission process helps ensure completeness of an application. You can, if someone fills out a paper application, you might get, only 20, 30% of the required fields filled out. And then you've got a lot of administrative burden chasing down details.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Harvey?
Matthew, I disagree. Because if you go down to the bottom of the page where it says award of the grant, it has to be a complete and thorough application. So, and then again, Matthew, let me say this, because I don't want you to think I'm trying to buck you on all this, but truly, somebody's got to sit down and go through all this. And this is burdensome at best. And Matthew, your organization cannot be doing that. We're talking to the SBDC and talking to the Chamber of Commerce about getting volunteers. And I tell you, the Chamber has really took Commissioner Rawls's statements to heart about how people will be looking at that. So they're going to be very aware of that. We can't put burden on volunteers. The onus has got to be on the business owner to submit a complete and thorough application. And I think paper applications would do that even better than an online application will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. I don't have much of a screen on who's there, but somebody has raised their hand. I think it's Miss Lynch. Miss Lynch, did you have some comments you'd like to make, ma'am?
Yes, I just wanted to give some backup information. What Matthew is saying is correct. When you do, so
I would hope so.
When we did the emergency bridge loan program, there was a lot of administrative stuff on the paper applications versus the online applications. In addition, the online applications, if this is a first come, first serve, and you're going to have paper application and somebody handed it in, but then other people did it online and beat them to the punch, there may be some issues with that. We did encounter that with the emergency bridge loan program. I do understand that people may not have the access, but almost everybody has a telephone and can apply online. And if they do need additional help, Dana and I have spoken. They can come to the SBDC for help, or other volunteers that are in the mix that can help them with the online process. Just for purposes for audit, if first come, first serve, paper versus electronic, who got it in first, and the completeness of paper applications are not always the case. They're usually shortcutted mostly because if you do an online application, you can't go to the next prompt unless you fill in the previous one. So there's ways to make people fill out the application appropriately online.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl, for them comments. Commissioner Harvey, what would you like to do on that issue, sir?
Well, I think I was in consultation with, I think paper applications are still valid. The onus is on the people to do a complete and thorough application. And I think that let's give them the option and go from there.
Okay. Is that the consensus of the rest of the board? Commissioner Goddard, what is your consensus, sir?
Well, I'm going to say, I think we need to go ahead and let the paper, that there be a paper application with the understanding that the paper application could be slower and could put you at the end of the cycle, because it is going to become first come, first serve, and online is going to be quicker. And we are providing volunteers to help with that. So I think the paper is good, but make sure that they understand that theirs probably won't be processed as quick.
Well, I think one of the biggest considerations is what Matthew brought out is that with a paper application, they don't have to fill out all the blocks. And so what could easily happen is if they leave off a certain block or doesn't fill something in that they'd have to fill in online in order to submit the application, that they need to be aware that that may hit a stack that's not approved because it's not fully filled out. So, there's other things we need to look at, but I agree with all y'all. That's fine with me. We'll give them paper applications. And like you said, Commissioner Goddard, try to let them know that that needs to be filled out completely or it will not be considered for award. Commissioner Pickens, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everybody, but with Commissioner Goddard, and Commissioner Harvey, I do believe you need to have a paper application because there'll be some people who just don't have the technology. If you think about it, most people have younger people in their family and probably can do it on their phone while they're driving down the road. I mean, you're not supposed to do that. But I think paper applications need to be made available, but they need to understand that it definitely could slow the process down to go ahead and fill it out and get it in as soon as possible so they may not miss the deadline or be left out.
Okay. All right. So sounds like we want, Matthew, it sounds like we want paper applications to be inserted in this at the request of Commissioner Harvey and the other commissioners. Is there, Commissioner Harvey, before we continue on, I think some of the staff has asked for a 5-minute recess.
That'd be fun.
So we're going to recess this meeting for 5 minutes. going to, looks like Commissioner Rawls dropped off and he's dropping back on, maybe. I don't know. So anyhow, just let him back.
I'm switching device. I'm going from phone to laptop.
Ooh.
Well, okay. So somebody needs a mute. All right, let's call the meeting back to order after recess. Jacob, you got us streaming? Okay, good deal. All right, Commissioner Harvey, I think when we recessed, we were in the process of letting you go through your concerns. So if you want, I'll give you back the floor, sir, at this time and let you continue on.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Let's look at the next paragraph where it says applicants will be requested and or required. Those list of items right there. And I guess my question is, again, to Matthew. Matthew, are all of these requirements required by the Treasury Department? Because again, take number 2, the business and business owners are in good standing, no active judgments, liens, bankruptcy. That's kind of getting really into their business. Convicted felons. I mean, I don't understand why we're getting that far into the weeds on that item alone.
So we're trying to keep this as administratively lean as possible and not try to collect this information. Unfortunately, there are federal laws that we do have to adhere to here. And specifically with these federal programs, this is exactly the case with the SBA, PPP, and EIDL loans. If a business owner has greater than 20% interest and is a convicted federal felon, they can't receive assistance.
Okay.
So we
all right,
do
Matt.
have some considerations. The remainder of those items, the judgments, liens, bankruptcies, this is to try to mitigate compliance risk because they would indicate high risk for allowable use of funds.
But again, Matthew, I never wanted to score people. I wanted to grant people, businesses, money. I don't want to take the effort and score somebody who's turned their life around and all of a sudden now because they're a convicted felon or they might owe some court costs that they're going to be out of the money. I don't ever want us to do that. That's not what this commissioner wants to do.
I understand that, Commissioner Harvey, but I think unless I misunderstood Matthew, we don't have a choice because the federal law says we can't give it to them.
I think on the convicted felon component, that is the case. I think some of the other ones are more compliance risks from an auditing perspective to try to mitigate. And your point is taken. I'm happy to maybe take some of this out. Asking them to provide any sort of supporting documentation, and we weren't going to do third-party verifications of these. What we were going to do is ask for a self-certification that they are in good standing. So, we don't want them to lie. We can take a number of these items out if you feel like it's going to be prohibitive.
So, Commissioner Harvey, do you have heartburn that if we just asked them to self-certify that they are not any of those problems?
I don't have that problem at all, and I think that's fine. The onus is going to be on the recipient as far as I'm concerned. That's what I see. Mr. Chairman, going down just a little bit further, a brief description of the business and organization operations. Again, I think we need to change that date from July 1 to March 1.
Okay, is the commissioners okay with that? Looks like we're okay. Wave at me, guys.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Matthew, is that okay? There's no problem with us changing that to March 1st, is there?
Not at all.
Okay, good. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Down a little further, a couple more lines where it says if we're going to keep this in, if we have to, Matthew, I really don't think we need to. A full employee list as of July 1. If we have to, I think we need to go to an April 1 date, but I don't see the need for us to ask that information and even hold on to that information. Matthew, what's your opinion of that?
And we were trying to keep this again administratively, simplified by just asking for that IRS form 941 or W3. So if they're, a registered business, they would have had to submit this documentation as part of their tax filing. So we would have just grabbed it.
Okay,
Mr.
but April
Chairman.
1 would give them the first quarter results from January, February, and March. So if we moved it to April 1, then we can accomplish that, correct?
That's correct. We did have the tax date pushed back this year, so it is we want to make sure we capture it into a later date that was more representative of the July 15th.
I think the April 1 is a good date because that gives you your first quarter, and we moved everything back to March, so why not keep that at April? And that gives a whole first quarter.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Susan.
A W-3 is done at the end of December for W-2 purposes. It will not reflect employees in March. It will reflect employees at December 31st. So I would take that off and use the 941.
Okay, good point.
Is that okay, Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're going to drop the or W3 and we're going to put the March 31st date or April 1st date.
Yes, sir, April 1.
Okay. All right, next, sir.
Don't know why we need to know the total number of employees terminated or furloughed. I don't know what we're going to be doing for that information. I think it's very onerous, but if we have to keep it in there, we have to. I just don't know why we need to.
A couple of commissions there, Commissioner. So one, it is a data point that you can actually understand how businesses have been impacted, certainly for rolling up and understanding business impacts within your community, but also because it helps establish that they experienced business interruption, which is the intent of the grant program.
Okay, and then I'll wrap up, Matthew and Mr. Chairman, with that bottom one there that says, I would prefer that the business owners self-certify that they do not have any federal tax liens, so we could drop that bottom one and just insert that one right there.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Matthew? We're going to take the alternate.
That's certainly fine, Commissioner or Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Harvey, is that what you have, sir?
Yes, sir. That's what I have right now.
Okay. Is there any other commissioners have anything at this point?
I do.
Commissioner Rawls?
Switch screens here. Just, I guess, curiosity, why October 31st? Why do the funds have to be expended October 31st when we have till the end of December? Just a question for thought. But up on page 14 where it talks about, where was I? The individual, and if you've already gone over this, forgive me because I lost a lot of the meeting for 5 minutes, but it says if any of the individuals and entities that own 20% or more of the business declared bankruptcy in the past 36 months, not sure if that's relevant or necessary. Is a business where it says, are they currently 30 days or more behind on payments due for rent, loans, credit cards, blah, blah. I don't think that's relevant. I would assume, just for the sake of assumption, that most businesses will probably technically be behind their rent if their bank offered them a forbearance and they took advantage of it. I don't know why that question would even be asked. I think it should just be assumed.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I was understanding that we were going page by page. Have we?
I was giving Commissioner Rawls a little bit of leeway because he lost connection, and so yeah, we're finishing page 2 at the moment, Commissioner Rawls, which is on page
13.
12. 12. And so if you don't mind, we're going to work our way all the way to the end, if that'd be okay with you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we're at the end of page 12 at the moment. Page 2 or on the draft, but page 12 in the packet. I think there's some at the bottom that it says to be determined. Grant administration, grant collecting, and fund disbursement will be done by, and it's to be determined. When we get done with this, I think staff is going to have a talk with us about how we're going to get there. Julie, are you online?
Sir, I am.
Would you and Mr. Suggs like to take this opportunity to bring to the attention of the board of how this is going to be administered? It can't be done fully volunteer, so somebody's going to have to take care of it. So y'all go, whichever one of you wants to, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that opportunity. So the intention, what I am hopeful of is that by the end of this meeting, the board has worked out the program details and that we are ready to finalize this program in order to disseminate it to the public. Once we reach that point, that I'm still hopeful we're going to reach at the end of today, then we need to discuss the logistics of program admin. So there are obviously a host of different options before us. Wood O'Brien has given a proposal that they could host it. I know that Clay County's got some sort of agreement with the SBA. I know that Ms. Lynch as well as Ms. Jones have interest in assisting in some capacity. The major caveats to engaging a program admin is that they're going to be able to deliver the services and the scope that we need in the time frame that we need it. I.e., if we're wanting to open up these applications on the 10th, then some entity has to be able to develop that web application and database before Monday at 10, which I know I'm quite certain that Wood O'Brien has because they've already developed it. I know that the SBA would be able to because obviously they've already developed it. So we still have some options. Whether or not the chamber and or Ms. Lynch would be able to deliver on that particular aspect, we would have to go through and research. But then there becomes a host of administration issues. And of course, there's always the opportunity that it's handled internally. However, with our current staffing levels, we don't have anybody that would be dedicated to this. So it would likely be us hiring external people in to work directly for the county under this program. So there's a lot to the program, not just in web development, but then in application review and validation, and ensuring that we have the proper documentation to send those people a legitimate check because we're going to have to record their tax information and all of that. Then ensuring that we have a certified grant agreement with that business because we're asking them to self-certify. And then as Commissioner Rawls picked up on or pointed out, there's currently a date of October 31st, and that was by design in working with a consultant, as he stated in the packet, by limiting it to October 31st, it allows the county barely, but enough time to appropriately reconcile the records and then repurpose funds if we need to. So if a company only was able to spend $1,500 in legitimate funds, then we could theoretically put that back in the pot if the board so chose and continue to allocate to additional businesses. And or we could work with that company and say, you've submitted a reconciliation for $3,000, but only $1,000 of that is legitimate because you can't pay your fire assessment fee or your school board taxes or any of those things. So we need to think through, these are legitimate expenses, and work with that company one-on-one to either help them appropriately identify $3,000 in appropriate expenses and or determine that they simply may not have had $3,000 in appropriate expenses that they can claim. And we would have to reduce their grant fund and or they would have to pay us back those funds, because there has to be reconciliation for every single one of these companies that we dole out funds to, or else the burden to pay those funds back that are spent misappropriated or spent incorrectly falls to the county. So there's quite a bit of grant administration that goes along with this program. I see you, Commissioner Harvey.
Commissioner Harvey, go ahead, sir. Sorry, I was muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Julianne, I appreciate the narrative, but I disagree with the fact that we need to go out and have these businesses prove where they spent the money. The 12 counties that received the money straight from the federal government did not have that requirement on them. And
but Commissioner Harvey, the cities that receive the money directly are working straight with the Department of Treasury. I get that,
Julianne. I fully understand that. And I was supportive of sending that money back to the federal government and us trying to get our money with the same set of rules. This seems to be very burdensome in favor of our contractor, if you will. And I will say this, I think we need to make it very less cumbersome. I think our SBDC and our chamber have already stepped up. We can do an MOU with them. And the clerk's office, I've been in contact with them from day one, and they can turn this money around pretty quick. They might have to hire what we might refer to as an auditor to take a look at this, but truly that money can be spent inside of the grant. I don't want to make this process so burdensome that it benefits the contractor. My point is to make it very simple that we can give the businesses money. Yes, accountability is important to me, but I don't know if I want to ask a business in Alaska to show me where did you spend this money at. Now, maybe we have to, or maybe we don't. But some of those, we just need to play by the same rules that the 12 counties did. And I think we'll be fine with that. Unless I'm proven wrong, they're not having to ask. And why should we have to ask? And that's my statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Matthew, would you like to address that, or just stay out of it at this time?
I don't mind addressing it. Many of those counties are actually doing follow-up. They've entered into agreements with either vendors who are doing the administration for them or third-party entities within their counties to do that. But they are requesting. What I've tried to design here is about as administratively streamlined of a program as you can get by having them submit a form where they are self-certifying it. So they're not going to have to provide detailed documentation to substantiate every expense. They just need to outline it. That's a fair amount of due diligence to at least show your auditors, you're going to receive greater than $750,000. So you're going to be subject to a single audit, and the single audit is going to want to know what due diligence you performed to ensure compliance and that the fund was spent appropriately. So this was an intention to create a streamlined program where we get the money out, and then all we're requesting the businesses do is in a just line item detail. They don't have to provide the supporting documentation. They just need to outline how they use the funds and then self-certify that the information that they provided is accurate.
Okay, but Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Matthew, you heard Julianne mention about if they didn't spend the money and getting that money back and repurposing it. That's a lot more detail oriented than you just said yourself. So, and I'm with Commissioner, well, I don't want to put words in Commissioner Turner, but earlier we talked about the tax burden, and they use our money to pay their other bills first, and then they can pay their taxes. I can assure you that these businesses in Putnam County are going to find a way to spend every penny they get. And it's not going to have to be where if they self-certify, that's plenty good for me. I mean, that's fine with me. So I understand you keep using the word streamline, but frankly, my application was 5 boxes and that was the end of it. I appreciate you trying to get us out of hot water or any type of audit problems, but I don't see this as being streamlined, Matthew. I really, really don't. And I really would appreciate for us to keep the eye on the ball here. I believe that our clerk of the court can easily handle the audit. If they have to hire people, there's money in CARES Act money to do that. And they can be the ones that control this, and we can keep it local. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Harvey. I'm gonna make one comment, and then if we're not gonna solve this problem, there's no sense in talking about the rest of this program, because this is a key aspect of it. Who's gonna administer the program? I think it's unfair to tell Clerk Smith that he's got until Monday morning to come up with an application to administer this program. I see your hand raised, Tim. I'll let you come in just a second, if you don't mind. And then I'll listen. I see your hand raised too, Matthew. But anyhow, we need to come up with administration, and it's not a matter of using this for a reason to hire an auditor general. That's not going to happen, because we can't pay for it. Even if we could pay for it, we can only pay for it during this project period. And so then it would be a recurring expense from now on. I understand with the stuff on the street that everybody's trying to use this as a reason to run out and hire an auditor general. That's not going to fly with me. And so, because it would be recurring expense from now on, and we haven't even let the new purchasing ordinance settle in yet. So we've got to come up with a way today to determine how we're going to administer this program, because us just voting today to say that Monday of next week we're going to put out an application online and we don't have anything set up to administer the program one way or the other, then it's not going to happen. So anyhow, with that being said, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fairly confident that we can handle the auditing part of this. What helps that be able to be handled is to collect the data up front, and then to follow the rules as established by the CARES Act and the intent of the Board of County Commissioners. So one of the things that when county administration is talking this afternoon about the award of the grant
we lost you, Tim.
And where it said to be determined, one of the things that, okay, how about now?
Got you now, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, one of the things that we will need is that the board designate who is the entity or person that is going to sign off on these applications being sent to us for processing of the payment.
Okay. Matthew, did you have your hand raised, sir?
Apologies, Chairman. No,
yes.
I don't want to lose sight of, the first comment there. We obviously need to work through that element of it, but I do, this is not, me trying to say that you need all this additional administration. We really are trying to consider the compliance risks that come up in an audit and getting at least the minimum amount of information that's going to pass muster with federal funds. These are federal funds, and the Office of Inspector General is going to come through an audit and want to understand exactly how this funding was utilized. So that's the last consideration.
Okay. So, Commissioner Harvey, are you done for now, sir?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So, Commissioner, is there any other commissioner comments on the issue of who's going to do the grant administration, grant contracting, and fund this? The disbursement will be done by the clerk's department, and the auditing will be done by the clerk's department. I understand, Mr. Smith. And so it's going to be the grant administration and grant contracting. So I guess what's got to be determined now is who is going to do the work to get the application where it will run on Monday. If the program is going to be determined by the chamber and the Small Business Development Center, between the two of them working together to approve that the grant applications are in order. So, does anybody have any suggestions on that at the moment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Pickens.
I guess it's possible that Cheryl and through SB, the Small Business Association, and then Dana with the chamber, would they be able to handle this procedure or not?
I don't know that they'd be able to handle the upfront part. Dana was on the call. I'm assuming she's still on it with us. And
Yes.
we heard from Cheryl earlier, but I
And
don't
I've got
know.
my raised hand when you could call on me. This is Dana.
Okay,
I guess we
good.
probably need to start maybe by what they can handle and what they can't, and it may make our decision a little easier on the part that we'll have to hire out or go with the consultant. If I'm following this.
Yeah, excellent suggestion, Commissioner Pickens. Dana, would you be prepared to answer that for us this morning?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Earlier, and I did talk with Cheryl Lynch, and she is on the call with us, so she can also comment. But when I spoke with her, what I thought we would offer, what we could offer, was a group of people to review applications. And in my mind, that was a short form application, checking out, corporations with Sunbiz, etc. The more I've listened to today, I'm wondering if the SBDC and the chamber need to be on the other side helping the businesses complete the forms. But that being said, I have no ability to be the grant administrator and do any part of the WebEx part. What I had offered up, again, was a team of people, bank loan officers, branch managers, I think Cheryl, and maybe even a couple other SBDC reps to kind of round out a team that could evaluate. Any questions?
Commissioner Pickens?
No, not at this time.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Rawls?
I think we're making a lot more of this than we need to. I think Commissioner Harvey's right. I think we need to figure a way to streamline this thing as soon as possible. We're not inventing the wheel. It's already been invented. I think we should move this thing forward in an expeditious manner with as few words on paper as necessary. We need to determine whether or not we have a viable business, whether or not they were in business at a certain point in time, whether or not they had employees or legitimate expenses. Very, very, very basic information. We're trying to get out a $3,000 grant, not a $30,000 grant. And then on the flip side, as far as them certifying whether or not they spent the money as allocated, we're going to have to trust our business owners. Unless somebody's going to go knock on every door and start reviewing financial information from each business, you're not going to be able to determine that. We're going to have to trust that the individual signing with their signature and their good name, that they're being honest with us. But this should be a very simple process, and I think we're just making a lot more out of it than we need to.
Well, I totally agree with you, Commissioner Rawls, except for the fact that if we don't spend this money in the proper manner, the county's going to have to write a check and pay the money back. And so whatever program we do, we need to expedite it, just like everybody wants to do, including me, but we need to expedite it in a manner that is legal, that we don't have to write a check. The impact that $3 million or more would have on the county's budget to have to pay it all back, because you're not going to get this money back from the people. We're granting it to them. That means you don't get it back. So
let's have a qualifying statement that says when they certify, if they're found to be the expenditures were improper or they're being deceitful in a way, that they owe us the money back. We pay the federal government, they pay us the money back. But we'll sit here from now on in perpetuity, have this conversation if we don't just move on. And, if we have 1% or 2% of bad actors, it's a risk we're going to have to take. So we are going to have some fraud in this. There's no doubt about it. But we're talking $3,000, and I trust that our business community is honest enough to be able to determine whether or not they qualify for the money and would spend it appropriately.
I appreciate the fact that you'd like to move on, but until Commissioner Rawls, until we decide who's going to do the grant administration and the grant contracting, there's no need to move on. How are we going to do it? We don't have the staff to do it. I think that's the way that Julie was saying it. And you just heard the chamber say that they didn't have the resources to set up the program and have it running by Monday morning. So somebody has got to set it up, or if we vote to have the program, it's not going to take place unless somebody's there to administer the program.
Dana had suggested in an email to me that she pulled together a group of bankers to review the applications. I think that's a great idea. So if we have a group of bankers that are willing to volunteer their time, they can review the applications and put a red check mark or an X on it if they feel that it's an approved application or should be disapproved. And then we're only talking about up to 1,000 applications, and it's not an arduous task. Obviously, if the application is a simple application, we could, if it's being done online, especially, we could set up search conditions in a database that would trigger if certain things are checked yes or no that should or should not be, and help move that along. But we've spent over $400,000 on EOC, which I have a huge gripe about, and yet we can't get this $3 million out. We've got people sitting at EOC that might be able to do this. Let's get something moving here. Pick somebody and just tell them to do the task.
Okay, that's fine, Commissioner. Somebody has got to set it up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Harvey, and then I think Ms. Young would like to speak again.
Okay. When Ms. Young was giving her presentation, she said that they, if I'm hearing you right, Ms. Young, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that Widow Bryan has given us an additional cost to be the grant administrator and the grant contractor. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, sir. Well, we have a proposed cost or a max not to exceed based on the estimated man hours.
Okay, so right now.
But as we morph into what we're actually going to need, i.e. Mr. Smith obviously just made the offer that he believed that the clerk's office could likely do, if I understood him right, that the clerk's office could likely do the grant wrap up and the reconciliation of the forms, as well as the packaging of grant documents for compliance and record keeping. And I understand the mentality that y'all are seeing that it's a $3,000 grant, but it's federal funds. And anytime we agree to work with federal funds, we're subjected to all of the federal fund requirements. And what the federal government is going to look at is that it's a $3 million program.
Okay, Julianne, my question to you is simple. We paid $50,000 to Widow Bryan to bring them on board. How much more are we going to pay? How much more is their estimate to be the grant administrator?
Commissioner Harvey, that is not an accurate statement. We paid up to $50,000.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And it's on a per hour thing. So let's not. Okay. I've already had to get worn out by that already. It's not.
I'm sorry.
It's up to. Thank you, sir.
I misspoke. You're right, sir. Thank you.
Continue, please.
Okay, Julianne, is based on that is what is our anticipated expenses based on if they were grant administration?
Well, I believe we would need to ask them to revise their current proposal in light of the clerk's office offer, because that grant reconciliation and packaging is a huge burden on manpower hours and that kind of thing. So if the clerk's office is willing to take that over, it's obviously going to reduce what Widow Bryan's proposal comes in at. So if let me answer your question more directly, I guess, in fairness. To go from beginning to end, meaning they do all the compliance, all the wrap up, all the grant record keeping, they build the program design and application development. And their web application development was, when we began discussing this with them, we expressed the need for urgency. And so we understand the board wants it active and funds available as soon as possible. And as such, what we talked through with their application development was an electronic scoring system. So as the businesses fill out the web form, if they choose to go web form, with or without the chamber's help, if they get a certain score above a certain number, then we automatically have cleared them and they could have their funds, were cleared. And then we review the others. It would also include if a business filled out the application and they received an unfavorable recommendation, i.e. they were denied, then it would include Widow Bryan sitting down or communicating with that company on what it would take or why they were denied. So there's an appeals process wrapped up into it. So there's a lot going on. So soup to nuts and bolts, the whole thing. We have a maximum not to exceed cost of $56,000.
Okay, Julianne, if you look on page 12, the last sentence disputes what you just said, because you said that they would sit down with the applicant and clear that up. This says feedback on applications not awarded funding will not be provided.
What we talked to them about is doing a letter that explained the decision and the criteria, which would allow that business to then to correct those items. And Matthew, I can't see your screen because I've only got a few little people, but I assume you're still here.
I am still here, yes.
Yeah, can you reiterate what we were talking about Friday as far as if a business were denied, that the letter of determination that would be sent out would help that business understand on what criteria they were denied and how to go about resubmission and or submission of additional information?
Yes, I can. And Commissioner Harvey, your point is taken. So that feedback on applications not awarded funding will not be provided. That is an incorrect statement. We would update that to include that there is an appeal process where if they felt like they didn't actually, we didn't appropriately score or consider the application, that they would be able to appeal it, and it would go through a secondary level of review where we would communicate the exact issue to which they were considered not eligible.
Thank you, Matthew.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
One
just a second, Julie. Commissioner Rawls.
Commissioner Turner, you said that you had questioned about the $50,000 expenditure, and they said that it was not $50,000. But when I asked for a breakdown of the cost to date, one of the line items says 399,525 other contractual Widow Bryan LLC miscellaneous services $50,000, and then it has a PO entry. Was the purchase order cut to Widow Bryan for $50,000?
Hang on a second. I'll let them answer that for you, Commissioner. Julie, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Ross, when you sign the agreement for a max not to exceed, we place an encumbrance, a PO, for the max not to exceed number. To date, we have not paid out a single dollar in invoices to Widow Bryan. Obviously, we've incurred costs, but that encumbrance, that placeholder is simply that. It's a budgetary placeholder that says the county agreed on a max not to exceed number, and that we've placed that budgetary encumbrance there.
Okay. So the $56,000 that you said soup to nuts all included. Is that inclusive of the original $50,000, or is that on top of the $50,000?
This would be for this program specific.
No. Yes. Okay. Simple yes or no question then. Are we looking at a maximum $106,000 to Widow Bryan of CARES Act money, or a maximum of $56,000 of CARES Act money to Widow Bryan?
A maximum not to exceed of 106.
Okay. Thank you.
But Commissioner, please understand that was without the clerk doing anything and them doing it from front to end, the whole program. That's not what's taking place. If the chamber and the Small Business Development Center is going to do the reviews, and the clerk is going to cut the checks, and the clerk is going to do the auditing and the finish up program like Mr. Smith said, then all we need to do at this point is get somebody to do the administration between now and when the chamber would take over. Julianne, I see your hand up.
Yes, sir. I did leave out. Commissioner Pickens brought up a great point. And the other aspect that we talked to Widow Bryan about is that we do have a large Hispanic speaking community. And so inclusive of that is also an application that will be complete and available in Spanish, as well as part of their grant analyst team. It includes a gentleman who is proficient in reading, writing, and speaking Spanish, because we want to be able to service that community just as well as we're servicing others. And we don't currently internally have the ability to do that.
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to clarify something that I said earlier, and I hope I didn't cause any ruffled feathers. I really wasn't referring to an auditor general. I was referring to an extra person in Mr. Smith's office under a contract basis. It would be good for this fiscal year and going into next fiscal year to wrap it up. Truly, that would be an expense if Mr. Smith see it fit. And I'm not putting words in his mouth one way or the other, but I can't imagine that they could take on this without some additional help being required. What they do in the future is their own business at that point, and it would be up to the board to fund any positions. But I'm talking about a contract person right now, and thinking I have somebody in mind, but I'm never going to mention that. But I'm just thinking, if the more we can keep it in-house, and Mr. Smith will tell us if he needs that person or not, but we have to look at next year's fiscal year as a wrap up and an amount being there. So there's going to be cost either way. If we go with Whit O'Brien, we go with Tim Smith, I'm sure there's going to be some additional costs that have to be incurred. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to clarify that statement.
No problem, Commissioner Harvey. So basically, what I'd like to ask, and I don't know if I need to ask you, Julianne, or if I need to ask Matthew with Whit O'Brien. In the original tranche of money that we've given you not to exceed, I realize that was for mostly consultation services, but is there not monies left in that would get us through Monday, where we could go ahead and get this program cranking, and then we'll revisit it at that point? I don't know where we are on services that have already been rendered. I know y'all have got a lot of hours in it, but don't we have some money left?
Commissioner Turner, I'm sure you have the money left, but if they roll out the application, then they have the data. They would be the person that we would need to continue engaged through our grant cycle.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Rawls.
Do we have a breakdown of fees from Whit O'Brien?
Yes, sir. It was in the agreement you said that was presented to the board.
I mean, is there a one-page sheet that you can send me with a breakdown of fees and what we're looking at?
Fees to date?
No, just fees in general that they're going to use to charge against the $50,000.
Yes, sir. In your package, it would have been Appendix A if you still have that. Otherwise, after the meeting, I can resend it.
No, if you'll resend it,
Sure.
just the list of fees.
Okay.
Who did Clay County's website while we're on the floor, Matt or Matthew?
So the Clay County actually did a fair amount of their website work, and their parts of their grant program are actually being run by a partnership with the local economic development agency within the county.
Okay.
They've had a little more lead time on conceptualizing and developing that program, however. So, it took about, anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks to actually get that all framed up and ready to launch.
Okay, so Commissioner Harvey, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm going to try to bring this in for a landing. It appears based on conversation that Whit O'Brien is our best spot right now to do the grant administration and the grant contracting, and allow the SBDC and the chamber to help the people with the applications and other people, in my opinion, and allowing the clerk of the court to disperse the checks based on those applications. Now, we still got to get to the application part because there's some questions there, but I tend to agree that maybe they're postured better right now to help us. And I think that would be a fair statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so what you're saying, Commissioner Harvey, is you just soon use Whit O'Brien and to get us through the application portion of it.
Well, yes, sir. I am saying that because I think they're better posed to do that right now. And the chamber and the SBDC does not have the ability to be online immediately with that. Now we'll still have to work out the paper applications, but I'm sure that what O'Brien can, maybe they can be scanned and sent to them somehow. But I think they're ready to go, and this project is ready to go. And if we try to rebuild the whole project right now, we're going to be another month out trying to get this out the door. That's all I'm going to say about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so Matthew, would it be a possibility for us to use the monies that we already have set aside in the program to use you towards getting us through the application, and then we'll revisit when we start getting to the end, we'll revisit how many more services we need at that time?
We can certainly do that, Chairman.
Okay. All right. Well, Commissioner Harvey, I can't see all the commissioners on the screen, so I need Commissioner, I'm going to roll call this. Commissioner Harvey, is that okay with you?
Yes, sir. That's my recommendation.
Commissioner Rawls, are you good with that?
I'm fine with that.
Commissioner Pickens, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good. It seemed like that's right now is our best option because we got all the other pieces taken care of from either SBC, SBA, Small Business Association, Chamber, and then the Clerk of Court. So I'm good.
Okay. And Commissioner Goddard? Are you on the call with me, Commissioner Goddard?
I am.
Okay. Are you good with that, sir?
I am good with it.
Okay. In that case, Julianne, do you have enough information at this point for you to know how we're going to administer, or do you have any questions?
Yes, sir, I'm good. I'll work with Matthew and we'll finalize the scope and remove the grant reconciliation and compliance for record keeping and move that over to the clerk, and then kind of get an idea of scope of services for just this particular one. And obviously, as said by the commission, we're going to take that out of the initial funding that's already been allocated for them. Okay, good deal. With that being said, could we move on to the next? We're going to move on to the next page. If y'all would give me page 3, which would be on page 13. All right. Does anybody want to discuss this page? There weren't any questions from Whit O'Brien, so does anybody?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
I think we beat this. Well, I think we've talked about this on the first paragraph, line 3, middle of the sentence, unused funds will be returned. Right. I doubt seriously we'll have unused funds. I just think that's burdensome, but I'll concede to that right now, and we'll move forward, sir.
I can't imagine anybody that's in business for real can't spend $3,000 in all the things, including all the bills that were laid out earlier that from March till October 31st. It would be very, very difficult for me to believe they couldn't spend it. Anyhow, I'll do whatever the board wants, but I'm okay with leaving it in there for now.
Yeah, I would.
I don't think it's going to be overly burdensome. So if nobody has any more on this page, if we could go to the next page, which is page 4, but page 14 on the packet.
I got some questions.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls.
Toward the top, it says, has the business been in operation for 3 years, yes or no? I don't have a problem with the question. It's just, is that a disqualifying? If it's a no, is that disqualifying since, CARES Act really identifies business that were in business in January?
No, it's not a disqualifying criteria. One of the benefits of engaging with the small business community in an application process like this is being able to collect some information. And I know the reason I specifically put it in there is I know that you had stopped collecting business tax some years ago. And so this is a great opportunity to collect some meaningful metrics.
I agree. Yep, I agree. All right. And maybe revise that question to say, how many years have you been in business? So we can get some more useful data. Where you have did you receive the small business grant from SBA or federal state? I think we should be a little more explicit in that so as not to confuse anybody and put i.e. PPP, EIDL, or any other source of state or federal funds, just for consideration. Where was the other one? You got NIAX code lookup. Is this just for where you have a minority, women-owned, veteran, all that? Is that just for data collection purposes, or what would be the relevance? Okay, because that's typically federal contracting world, and I would also include HubZone if you're going to do that. Where's the other one? Number of employees. I had a couple more I'm trying to find on here. Oh, is a business currently 30 days or more behind in payments for rent, loans, credit cards, blah, blah. This is what I was bringing up earlier. I think that is really irrelevant, and it's not, in my estimation, it shouldn't count against somebody that's going to apply for it. And then there was a question about whether or not they filed bankruptcy. I don't know that that's relevant. The bankruptcy laws were put in place to protect businesses and try to keep them into business, if possible. So I'm just not sure why that would, because this eventually becomes public record, correct?
It would. It is a federal grant application, so it does become part of public record if individuals choose to foil it. Now, the certain information won't be available. Certainly, personal identifying business information won't be available. I want to address the first item you asked about: is the business currently 30 or more days behind on payments due? So this is to establish business interruption. It's an additional supporting metric that demonstrates that the business has been impacted by COVID-19, which substantiates them receiving a grant application. So it certainly doesn't count against them. It just helps, with the file that they've experienced business interruption. Likewise, on the bankruptcy component of things, the issue with issuing federal grant programs to someone who may be going through bankruptcy proceedings is it could actually put that funding at jeopardy, specifically for vendor obligations.
What do you mean?
In the process of proceedings, accounting for that information, it's certainly not a disqualifier, but it is a good metric to understand. And I have no issue with taking it out if solvency is not one of your concerns.
Well, if we could just have a qualifying statement then that says, in the interest of gathering data, have you been impacted by the COVID pandemic by having to file bankruptcy or by getting behind on any kind of oh man, I'm having a senior moment here. Anyways, 30 days on your rent, on your credit card, are you defaulting on currently in default on any kind of obligations as a result of COVID? Have a qualifying statement and let them know that this is not going to disqualify you. It's simply so we can gather the data.
Commissioner Rawls? Mr. Chairman, may I?
Go ahead, Mr. Harvey. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, sir. If from item, let's look at that whole statement under business organization. If we're looking from 2-digit NAICS code all the way down to, if yes, please explain your I think we need exactly what Commissioner Rawls said. We need a narrative there that says, answer these questions or not. This is not going to affect your availability to get these funds. This is just for data collection. And I'm not sure, Matthew, I like the idea of using our businesses for data collection based on that, but that's your business. But Commissioner Rawls, could you think along those lines and see if that might?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. We're trying to get this money out. Hopefully this is a snapshot in time we'll never, ever have to repeat in our history. But we're here and we need to deal with it. So I, as a business owner, know the frustrations, the anxieties, and the pains that businesses had to go through. And I know that the chairman and you, Mr. Harvey, and Mr. Pickens and Goddard too, all of us know the pains of having employees and having to meet burdens. And fortunately, in my line of business, construction has really not slowed down that much. It's hit a few bumps in the road, but I'm thinking more in terms of other businesses that have pretty much shut down or on their way out of business if we don't give them some support. And I know if I was a business owner, what would be going through my mind looking at this application, I'd be going, why the hell do they want to know if I file bankruptcy? What does that matter? What does it matter if I'm 30 days behind? So that's where I'm at. Just trying to get in the heads of the business owners and get them some comfort. And I don't want to run them off. I want them to apply for this and get the money and not make it a stumbling block for them.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Matthew, I would like to take whatever questions out of this application that are not pertinent to this process. If you believe that we need to ask a certain question to remain in compliant and not have to pay this money back, I'm good. But I don't know that we need to use this process just for data collection on what if somebody's a minority or not, or if what business is minority owned or not, or unless that has a direct reflection upon us having to pay this back. Another thing is what if somebody is an illegal alien, or do they qualify? Or if it turns out that they're not in the country legally, do we have to pay back their portion of that loan? Do you know the answer to that, Matthew?
I do know the answer to that, and the answer is yes, you would have to pay that back.
Okay, so we're going to have to ask everybody that question for sure. So,
well, to consideration there, Chairman, I don't believe that they would be allowed to register a business in the state of Florida, correct?
Well, I don't know that answer either. Okay.
I think he's correct.
What'd you say, Commissioner Rawls?
I think he's correct that you can't register a business if you're not a U.S. citizen or a legal alien.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, Commissioner Rawls, did you have any more items on page 14?
No. Like I said, I think just a qualifying statement, and it could also, the qualifying statement could include understanding that your business was probably impacted by COVID-19. Just come out there from a sympathetic perspective. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Does any other commissioner have any further items on page 14?
I just have a comment.
Commissioner Pickens?
Yeah, I agree. Because looking at some of these questions, I kind of wonder why you need that information. So I'm in agreement with the group. I believe if it doesn't need to be asked, to qualify the applicant, then I don't really think it needs to. And also, when you're talking about that illegal aliens, would somebody that is in the country, and I don't know the exact status, but I have dealt with customers who just have a green card. So they're in here with that, and that may have changed over the years. Would they qualify if they actually operate a business with a green card and they're not a naturalized citizen?
I don't know. Matthew, would you be able to answer that or not?
I want to double check exactly what the registration requirements are for the state of Florida for a business, but I will do so just to ensure that that's not going to be a compliance risk.
Commissioner Goddard, are you waving at me, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, on this page right here towards the top, it's asking you for your federal, employer identification number. I mean, that's not, if you've got a federal employee identification number, the government is saying that you are legal to operate in the country.
Okay. Thank you for that. Does any commissioners have any more items on page 14? Okay, could we switch over to page 15 with the presentation? Does anybody have any additional items on this page?
I do, sir.
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, sir. I think in keeping with consistency, as far as Susan mentioned, if you look at under supporting documentation, the full employee list as of March 1, we need to strike or the W-3. That
Agreed.
needs to,
Agreed. Yes.
And then on the preferred form of payment, I'm not so sure. And I heard Matthew say that some of these documents will become public record for federal dollars. Some of them might be, but I'm not so sure I'd want to put my bank account and routing number on a form that might be. I just think that if it's okay with Mr. Smith, that just checks be written at that point versus, and checks be written to the business name, not an individual, unless they are an LLC or something in that nature. But, I just think it's scary to have those routing numbers listed on a form that might be public or might not be public, or might be a mistake that they be made public. And I just think that we need to look at that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Susan.
That was something that also caught our eye, and we have heartburn about that. We don't want that kind of bank information going even to a review committee and being part of public record. As far as the ACH, it's actually going to be quicker for us to do checks. We can get them out much quicker. Every single person's account and information would have to be set up in the bank to do ACHs. We can get checks out a lot quicker.
Okay. So scratch ACH to bank and it's all checked. Next, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Rawls, did you have something, sir?
Yeah, if Mr. Harvey's done.
Yeah, I think he is for now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have under acknowledgements, but go ahead, Commissioner Rawls.
No, I was going to let you finish, Commissioner Harvey. Please go ahead. I thought you were done.
Okay. Okay.
Can we scroll down a little, whoever's scrolling?
Okay.
Thank you.
Under the acknowledgement, I'm going to repeat myself about local taxes and federal and state. I'll have to concede on that one. Again, we need to straighten out on the third bullet point down there where it says the award of funding, that feedback will not be provided to applicants, because that's not true. We are going to provide some form of feedback. And I think that, and I don't like the bottom statement, the last line halfway through, where these funds will be returned and we may result in legal action. But if we need to keep that in there, to be honest, then but I don't see our businesses filling out all this paperwork and then I know there's going to be some fraud, as Commissioner Rawls even suggested, but I trust our businesses to do the right thing, and I know there's going to be some too, but documents don't make people honest. People are going to be honest if they want to be honest.
That's right.
And, so those are my only comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls.
So where it says federal tax documents to justify the amount of grant funds, that's kind of ambiguous, and how do you justify it? Just for informational purposes, if you have a green card, you can have a Social Security card. You're legal. You're considered legal, so you can have a business and all that with a green card. You could be a framer in construction. I see them all the time. Framers, roofers, concrete finishes and stuff, and they have green cards and Social Security cards, and they're legit. Where's the other one? As far as the bank account, I personally don't have any heartburn with that. I know with the PPP and the EIDL and all the other stuff, when these applications went out from the SBA, they had you put in your ACH account number in there to receive the money electronically. That's the way the federal government was getting the money out, preferably. So I don't think that's an issue. They can redact the information if there's a public records request made. That would have to be redacted, just like a social security number or somebody's house address. There was one other thing. Regarding the tax, the payment of the taxes, I think any business owner is going to realize that if they have $3,000 and they have a tax obligation, a payroll obligation, and a mortgage or rent obligation, the money is going to get spent. So if they're spending their own personal money, they're going to commingle this money with their business account. So I guess my point is whether they spend it on taxes or not, you're really not going to be able to tell, because unless they have $0 in the bank the day they get this money and they have to meet an obligation for taxes, we're not going to be able to tell what pot of money that came out of. It's just all one big pot. So I think that's all I have now.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rawls. Ms. Frank told us earlier that she doesn't really want that information about the bank account. She doesn't want to set up it because she's got to set everyone up. The PPP loans went through a bank, so they already had all that set up. So it was easiest for them. But I think that we need to listen to Commissioner Harvey on that one and Ms. Frank, and do not make them give us their bank account number because it would add to the process for the clerk. So if I understood her correctly, and she's nodding her head. So,
so we're not looking, no ACH at all?
That's correct.
Okay.
At the recommendation of the clerk's department, finance department at the clerk's office, excuse me. Does anybody else have anything else on page 15? Okay, if we can, that's the last page. I don't have the next one, submission.
That's it.
No, there's a page 16, Mr. Chairman, but it's
I just found it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's just one paragraph.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to add on page 5 on the page 16? Okay. Well, I think Julianne, are you still with us? I can't see you on the screen.
I'm camouflaged, but yes, sir, I am here.
Okay, well, would whoever's running the program put us back on a regular Zoom meeting, please?
Yes, sir, we can do that. Hold up.
Hold on, we're trying.
Having technical difficulties, but we're working on that, sir.
Okay, while they're trying to get us back on a regular Zoom.
You see that?
Well, okay. While they're getting that done, and getting us back on a full screen, I guess the Julianne, again, you think you're far enough in this that you've gotten enough direction on how to move forward?
Yes, sir. We are clear on how to move forward.
Okay.
And my ability to move forward is better than my ability to stop sharing the screen.
This makes me feel better, though.
Okay. Well, we need a motion from a commissioner that says that we accept the information provided this morning with additions and corrections that have been laid out today.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the recommendation and the conditions as we discussed today and move forward with O'Brien and the clerk's office.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Rawls that we move forward with the information provided this morning with the additions and corrections that we made this morning. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Okay. That definitely took longer than I figured it was going to. So we're going to move to the next, and I'm going to go ahead and have administrator comments next.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. No, the only comment I have is what a great meeting this has been. But as you can tell, your Administrative CARES Act funding team of Julianne, Jim Troiano, Sam Sullivan, and myself have worked really closely with Whit O'Brien and Matt and his team to bring back this information on a very quick turnaround. And to have 2+ hours of conversation on it this morning to get it approved, that gives us an opportunity now to move into the next phase of this. So my only comment is thank you all for pushing through this morning. Thank Matt with O'Brien for getting back to us as many times this past week as we have. I think we've met 4 times, and it's just we're trying to do all we can for you folks, and at the same time limit your liability when this is over. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, Administrator Suggs. Mr. Commando, do you have anything for us at this time?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So before we move into commissioner comments, I was just wanting to be the first to add to Administrator Suggs's comments about how hard staff has worked on this week. I mean, they put together a program in a week that took a tremendous effort, and I hope that the public understands how hard and diligently that they've worked at this, and not got a lot of other things done that they needed to get done. So I want to add to that, and I'm going to ask commissioner comments next. Commissioner Pickens.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Turner, and I like.
Commissioner Turner, we still have a handful of public comments that need to be read. If you want to do that before or after commissioner comments, however you'd like to handle it.
Commissioner Pickens, would you mind if we went ahead and read the public comments?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
They came in during the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we've set the precedence that when people send emails during the meeting that we do allow them to be read. Is that correct, Rich?
I think so.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, start reading.
All right, the first one's from Tim Ho, and his comments are regarding CARES application. For what it's worth, the following entity types are not considered eligible to apply: publicly traded companies. My first thought is Zaxby's Restaurant, a publicly traded firm, yet a franchisee, probably categorized as a small business and always open. Perhaps clarify eligibility. Tim Hotelling. The next one is from Yvette Reyes, P.O. Box 253, Bostwick, Florida. We need a Spanish version, especially for CC, which I'm assuming is Crescent City. There are legal businesses that would qualify for this program and shouldn't be left out. This should have been a must for this consultant. We are a very diverse community and no one should be left out. The next one is also from Yvette Reyes. She said, not everyone has the same technology access. The paper application is not a hindrance. There should be a timestamp available, and if it's incomplete, it will not be accepted. There needs to be a consensus on how processing between the paper and online applications will be completed. Paper applications should not be put at the bottom. That is unfair practice if it was submitted on a timely manner. Thank you. And that ends public comment.
Okay. As far as Mr. Ho, and then we'll address the other one, even though we don't have to discuss all public comments. I think last time I didn't discuss it enough for Ms. Reyes, and she kind of wore me out pretty good about it. So I'm gonna try to do a little better today. I think we agreed, if I'm not mistaken, that we are going to have a Spanish version. Is that correct, Julie?
Sir, the application will be available in Spanish, as well as the consultant has a grant analyst that's assigned to our team who is proficient in reading, writing, and speaking Spanish.
Okay, so I think that's the first one. And the next one, didn't we decide we were also going to have a paper app?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was Tim Ho's question again about the businesses like a franchise owner? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure we can always find a way that this isn't going to work.
Mr. Hotelling's comments, or for what it's worth, the following entity types are not considered eligible to apply: publicly traded companies. My first thought is a Zaxby's restaurant, a publicly traded firm, yet a franchisee, probably categorized as a small business and always open. Perhaps clarify eligibility.
Commissioner Harvey, you have a comment, sir?
I do. I think most of those are LLCs if they buy into a franchise, and they're not publicly traded, the LLC. I would hope Wood O'Brien would look at it in that fashion and not the other.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Commissioner Harvey. I think that they would be separate, smaller companies, not public traded, that actually own the franchises, unless they're a corporate franchise. And if they are a corporate franchise, then obviously they have more than 50 people and they don't fit obviously into the program. So I think that's a good way to look at it, Commissioner. So that's our public comment. Earlier, when I was thanking everybody so much for everything they've done, I think I missed Laura Parsons. So I want to make sure and give her the kudos she deserves, because she's an intricate part of the team. Without her, we couldn't get this other stuff done. So with that, Commissioner Pickens, are you ready for your comment, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Turner, and thank you for running a great meeting. And thank Wood O'Brien for their expertise, and then Julianne and Administrator Suggs, Laura, staff, the clerk of court for all their input, and the commissioners. So I think it was a productive meeting today. So I want to thank everybody for that. One thing I do want to bring up, commissioners, is we have had a request a few months ago from Mr. Adams and Ms. Leonard to a couple of requests to consider taking down the Maltby oak tree, relocating the Confederate monument from the courthouse, and also I believe, to rename the courthouse, and I can't remember the former sheriff they would like to name it to, but the Hagan Courthouse. So anyway, I think it's time, commissioners. I know that we had one workshop, which I think was productive, and we heard from both sides a lot of input. I'm sure commissioners have received a lot of phone calls, a lot of personal contact, a lot of emails on opinions of what to do in this particular situation. But I think we had just mentioned at the end of the workshop a month or so ago that we were thinking about having something in September. So I think it would be prudent for the commission to decide today to pick a date, a set date and a time to have this if we're going to do it. As you know, we plan to have a nightly meeting or one meeting per month dedicated for the public to come in and discuss issues. We were able to do that. Yeah, one a quarter, I'm sorry. We were able to do that in January with the COVID pandemic. We were not able to do that again. I don't know if we could do that in September. I think we mentioned that. If not, if we could put this on the agenda for our workshop in the afternoon on September 8th, I think would be the second Tuesday in September, where we would dedicate that particular workshop to this issue, where we would hear input, we would discuss options, and we would make a decision on however the county commission deems to move forward. But that we would have a definite date, a time for the meeting, and that we would make a decision of how we are going to move forward. So both concerns, both sides, you can just put it as sides, understand that we are going to bring this to an end. So that's my request, is that we discuss that and either try to do it on the Thursday evening meeting or the 2:00 workshop on the 8th in September.
What are the commissioners, what is the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I think
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Commissioner Pickens. I know there's been a lot of say in this and trying to kick the can down the road. And last week, the Daily News suggested that we already made our decision. And then Saturday, we got beat up for not making a decision. So I don't know what that was all about. But I'm with Commissioner Pickens. I think we need to pick a date. I think you had mentioned September 8th, Mr. Chairman, back a few months ago. But to come listen to all sides, maybe not make the final recommendation or determination, but what the process going forward will be. I really fully support Commissioner Pickens' idea, and we just need to find a date. And I think, I know we have a lot to do in our workshop, so maybe it would be a specific date in the afternoon, maybe in the evening, maybe 2 o'clock. I don't care. But, that's something we can go forward with. But I do concur with Commissioner Pickens.
Okay, Commissioner Goddard.
Yeah, I know, I don't know if it was my turn or not, but yeah, I think the earlier the better. So September 8th at our workshop, I think is a grand idea. If we end up with a lot more, then we can move that to our third Tuesday. Is just a suggestion, but I do believe the earliest time, which in our schedule would be the 8th, would be a perfect time to sit down and discuss this.
Okay. Commissioner Rawls, you have anything to add, sir? Okay, you're muted.
All right. Why wait till September? Why not go ahead and get this over with next week or earlier if we can? If there's a decision to put this thing on the next ballot, that has to be done before the ballot's printed in August. If we wait till September, you just kick the can down the road for 2 years if the public decides they want to have a voice in this. So I think we should be looking at more like next Tuesday or Thursday or sooner, if at all possible, not waiting another 1 month and 6 days. That just, to me, a long time. And people are. I'm getting emails every single day, and I'm responding to every one of them. And everybody says they want to have a voice in this. They want this thing to put on the ballot. So I think we should have the conversation sooner than later.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey.
I appreciate that comment, Commissioner Rawls, but I do want to point out what I've been telling people, and I can only talk to y'all during a public meeting. So I'll say most of y'all know I'm a numbers guy when it comes to campaigns, and I can pretty much figure out the numbers. But here's the bottom line. We have 74,000 residents in Putnam County. We have 14,000 registered voters in Putnam County. If you have a turnout of 70%, you have
14,000?
45,000 registered.
Oh, you said 14,000. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, 45,000.
Commissioner Rawls, please let Commissioner Harvey finish, and then we'll let you speak again if you'd like. Go ahead, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you. So then you look at a turnout of 70% of 45,000, and we're looking at a very small number.
About 30,000.
Yeah, and then we're looking at 33,000. Divide that in two, because your majority vote, then at that point, now you're looking at 17,000 people that would tell us on a ballot out of 74,000 what they really want. I've made no bones about what this commissioner wants to do. I want to go out and do the town hall meetings and see what the people want in the communities that they live in. But I'm willing to do whatever the board wants to do. I just think putting it on the ballot does not give us the proper representation or the proper understanding of what, because I've heard some really good ideas. Commissioner Turner, you had a great idea. I spoke to the Interior Secretary out of the White House the other day, and they had some good ideas too on some national monuments. And when you mentioned Private First Class Jenkins, I mentioned that to them, and I know our administrator jumped on the narrative of that. So I think there's a lot of good ideas. I just don't want to be, I don't want to be in such a hurry that we miss out on something that we could make our community very proud and heal the hearts and minds of those people that feel offended. And because we're going to offend somebody if we continue, if we move too fast on this, we're going to alienate people. And I don't want to alienate the voters out there. So I'd rather hear from the residents. thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the ability to.
Commissioner Harvey, thank you. Commissioner Goddard, did you have something else to say? Are you good?
No, I have nothing to say.
I don't think we need a vote for this. We'll just place it on the September 8th agenda unless somebody has a problem. We'll talk about it and we'll advertise that we're going to try to make a decision that day, one way or the other. And we'll continue between now and then. You know, I know that we've been beat up pretty hard about not making a decision, but I'll tell you right now, if we made a decision and it was on a different side of what the newspaper wants, then we'd get burnt up by the newspaper for making a snap decision. So I want this commissioner, I mean, I think Commissioner Goddard said it in the paper the other day, which is absolutely as correct as anybody could have put it. If you want us to gather information and try to come up with the best way to make this happen, fine. If you want, because I've only had one option given to me, and that option was to move it to a city-owned cemetery. I haven't had another option given to me. So I understand that people are possibly working on some other options. But I'm with Commissioner Goddard. Do you want to force me today to make the decision? I say leave it right where it is. That would be my comment, just like his was in the paper. So I think that it is a prudent thing to do to continue collecting information and options. And if it turns out that there are no viable options, then we can vote on it just as well then. I think that we need to check with Charles Overturf and find out what the drop dead date to put it on the ballot would be, because I don't want that not to be an option if this commission decides. So if it turns out that the drop dead date, we could move this up until the 25th of August. But if we move it up to the 25th of August, then that's a transportation meeting and we're going to blow up the transportation meeting. Or the transportation workshop. So at this point, we could leave it there, but then find out from Charles what the last date is for this, to have it on the ballot if that ends up going there. Commissioner Pickens, did you have something to add, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably too late to put it on the August ballot naturally.
Oh yeah.
I would think that, there'd be plenty of time. If somebody wants to just call Charles, we'll find out, if there's a date and it needs to be on the 25th, or the 23rd, we can have a special Wednesday meeting. So, I think I appreciate everybody's comments and everything, but I do think that we need to be prepared at whatever that meeting is to make a decision on how we're going to move forward, whether it is going to leave it there, whether it is going to relocate it as the suggestion to the cemetery. If you're going to, maybe form a committee, a balanced committee to look at other options and then come back and present it to us for us to make a decision, or if we're going to put it on the ballot. I think we need to make a decision on how it's going to move forward, because I don't think we're kicking the can down the road. But I think if we continue to push it off, then that that's what we're doing. So I think we need to be prepared to come in there and vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rawls?
I spoke to Mr. Overturf the other day when I was at his office, and he indicated that he has to have the answer prior to the week of the 25th, so he can get with the county attorney to get the language written to get it put on the ballot. My understanding is they want to send the ballot off by the end of August to be prepared for the November election. So he would have to have that information ahead of time.
Well, we should have the information if we met on the 25th, and he should have the information the week of the 25th before the 1st of August. Mr. Suggs, would you reach out to Mr. Overturf and make sure that will work just in case?
Yes, sir, I will.
I don't know that it's going to go to the ballot or not. That'll remain to be seen later on, but at least we don't want to stop any possible options. So as of right now, if we'll put it on the agenda for the 25th, and please talk to transportation and try to make their agenda as short as possible for the transportation workshop, because we're going to hear this one too on the 25th of August. Does that suit you, Commissioner Pickens?
What's the options of moving the transportation? I know 18th is the election, about moving the transportation meeting and have a special meeting for transportation, because I truly believe we don't need anything on the agenda other than the request has been submitted to us. Nothing else, not one thing.
Okay. All right. Well, then what we're gonna do by consent of the commission, unless somebody has a problem with it, is we're the afternoon of the 25th. We're going. What'd you say, Jacob? Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, we'll do exactly that. I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Chairman. We're trying to get in and answer Commissioner Pickens' comments. We can absolutely move the transportation meeting. What I'm going to do, I've got an idea what might be on the transportation meeting already. So if our agenda is light enough, we'll just combine the BOCC regular meeting with the transportation agenda for next Tuesday, and we'll keep the following meeting open for nothing but this discussion.
Well, if we get in a crack, Terry, if we get in a crack and it won't work, what Commissioner Pickens is suggesting, then let me know and I'll call another transportation meeting in a week or so after that. I don't know of anything that won't wait unless you know of something.
You got it, sir.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going to do, Commissioner Pickens. We're going to have a one-item agenda on the 25th in the afternoon, and we're going to move transportation to another time. If it can't wait till the next meeting or whatever, we'll have that, and we need to put in there that we are going to try and make a decision. The commission is going to try and make a decision at a workshop, because we usually don't do that. We usually take it to the board meeting, the following board meeting. Is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner Pickens, is go that day, or to make the decision and move it on to the board meeting on the 8th for ratification?
If that's what legal feels we need to do, but I feel that when we come out of that meeting that afternoon, that evening, whatever time it is, that we have made a decision from the county commission of how we're going to move forward with this this particular situation.
Okay, Commissioner Goddard.
Yeah, could we not, could we just recess our board meeting and bring it back in at 2 o'clock? Since this is not a transportation meeting, couldn't it just be a continuation of our board meeting?
Yes, sir. I think it could, sir, but I believe that if we, this thing's being live streamed, if we're still Zooming on the 25th, and we should be, and so everybody's going to have firsthand knowledge of what's going on. So I think we'll be all right to just designate that as a workshop and just put in the that we are going to try and make a decision, at least of what we're going to do at the very least. I think that's what Commissioner Pickens is asking for.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think is, you know, what I think people want is the decision. So if there's a decision, we can't change that decision. Then it could, if it has to move forward to be ratified at the next Board of County Commissioner meeting, then be so. But I think coming out of there with decision of how this is going to move forward, I think is what I think is what leadership needs to show the citizens of Putnam County.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, just a second, Commissioner Rawls. We're going to put it on the afternoon of the 25th workshop agenda for a one item, which is going to be the statue. I understand that they've stopped asking for the tree to disappear. Did I see that in the paper or whatever? But whatever. So anyhow, we're going to talk about that issue on the afternoon. Commissioner Rawls, did you have anything else, sir?
Any chance we can have this later in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, to give more people an opportunity to attend?
Well, whatever the commission votes to do. Right now, we dedicated the afternoon workshop to it.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else saying they want to move that meeting tonight.
We talked about we talked about having a town hall meeting, and this kind of double as a town hall meeting / workshop.
Yeah, we were going to have a town hall meeting in September. Do you want to move it to September?
No, I'd like to have this later in the evening or later in the afternoon so we can allow for more participation.
Okay. Well, more than likely this meeting is going to be virtual. So what you're saying is what, Commissioner Rawls, that you want to move it to the evening where they won't be at work, sir?
Does it have to be virtual?
Yeah, it's going to be virtual unless this commission votes against it.
I would love to vote against virtual. Let's make it in person.
Well, I understand, but that's not what we're doing at the moment. So unless you have two other commissioners willing to join you, we're not going to do that. So we've been offered to go virtual through September. Yes, Commissioner Pickens.
Yeah, I would love to have it where we're not virtual, but with cases still, having every day in Putnam County and the increase we've seen over the last month, I don't think that's responsible to be able to do that. And by all means, I really don't care for these virtual meetings. This one was tough for me today. And, but I do believe that, we started too. This thing's not going to get over with in a couple of hours. This is going to be a long meeting. So I think if we're giving people time enough to prepare where they can send the emails in, mail them in, however they need to do them. So this is giving them plenty of time, I believe, to be able to have their input. And by all means, they have our email addresses. So I think we'll get enough input. And let me add one thing is we'll be moving forward and voting on what a commissioner the recommendation is, and then to get a second on and what do we vote on. So it will be I think it'll be one thing. So I think this meeting is going to take a long time, but I don't think we need to not go. I think we need to stay with the virtual, and I think 2:00 is what we need to do as our regular time.
Okay, noted. All right. Is there any other comments to be made on this subject? Administrator Suggs, did you tell me you had another issue that you needed to discuss?
Yes, sir. Just getting some direction. As you know, we're talking with the Rotary about doing the August 12th grand opening of the new park out there, Triangle Park, the Project Play. And so the question is, all the other parks are open. Folks are already utilizing our park, even though it's closed. The question is, when we do the grand opening, are we going to just go ahead and open up the park at that point in time for our folks in the county to go ahead and start utilizing it?
I would personally like a recommendation from Parks and Recreation. Would it be their advice to go ahead and open them up like the rest of the parks after we have a grand opening or whatever?
Parks and Recreation, the Parks and Recreation Board had to cancel their meeting on Monday, and they voted not to reconvene until their next scheduled meeting, which would be October 5th.
Well, Commissioner Pickens, as chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee, would you like to comment, sir?
Yeah, we had to cancel the meeting. There's no question, and I voted to have one next Monday, which I guess would be the 10th. So I haven't looked at my email this morning, so I guess I got outvoted.
But you're the chair, sir.
I would like to have a recommendation from them. Would it be appropriate to have Kevin send an email out and poll everybody to see what their feelings are?
Absolutely, we can do that.
I'll have Kevin do that, or Julianne, if you'll have Kevin do that. I have concerns with the amount. You wouldn't open the splash pad, would you?
Yes, sir. There isn't really a feasible way to close part of that I can think of, other than I guess we could theoretically try to turn the water off. But yes, I believe both would open.
Okay, yeah, if we could do that and then get it back to the board, we make that decision that Tuesday, correct? Tuesday the 11th before the ribbon cutting, right?
Yeah, the ribbon cutting scheduled for the 12th at 10. So yes, sir, you'd have a board meeting prior. If we can get those results back, we could report to you at either the board meeting or the workshop.
Okay. That's what I would prefer.
All right. Commissioner Harvey, do you have a comment, sir?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm not an attorney. I do think that you can't pull that board. I think Commissioner Pickens can call a special Zoom meeting to do that, but I don't think you should pull the board.
Is Park and Recreation, and I don't know that they're subject to the sunshine laws, Commissioner Harvey. Would they be, Rich?
I think they are, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, then we can't poll that board, I don't reckon, could we? Is that correct?
That's correct. No, you cannot pull the board.
So we can.
We'll just call a special Zoom meeting and Commissioner Pickens can.
Why would Parks and Rec be in the subject to the sunshine? They don't make any decisions; they make recommendations. So I thought boards that made recommendations were not subject to the sunshine laws. Where am I missing something here, Rich?
Advisory boards are also subject to sunshine when they're an extension of the sovereign.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to come up with another plan, Mr. Pickens.
Recommendation was to do a Zoom meeting. Is that not viable?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we were going to do yesterday. We couldn't have a clerk to board, so I wanted to reschedule it for next Monday, but I guess my board decided not to do that. So I'll get with Julianne and staff, and then I'll get with Kevin and see maybe we can have a special meeting real quick.
Okay. Well, this commissioner doesn't mind giving the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee the authority to either open it or not open it, depending on what he finds out in the recommendations. Is that all right with the other commissioners?
Sounds fine to me.
Commissioner Harvey, is that okay with you?
I don't know if he can find out the recommendations, Mr.
Well, then
Chairman.
he can make the call himself if he can't get a Zoom call. I don't care. I mean, he can get with staff and they can make the best recommendation they have. I have full trust in the chairman of Parks and Recreation.
And so do I, and I agree with that last statement. So I think letting Commissioner Pickens make the decision would be more than adequate, or call a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
I have a dumb question. Did the Parks and Recreation Committee vote to close the parks to begin with?
No.
Then
that's a good question. I don't think so. I think the county commission voted to close.
Right.
That's correct. But the Parks and Recreation Board did advise when we went to open them how it would be open and how organized sports would run.
But you said that all the other parks are open, so I would say let's just get this thing open sooner than later.
Well, so you're against, what you're saying is you're against giving Commissioner Pickens the right to go meet with staff and then make the call?
No, I'm saying staff should be able to make the call. They made the call to shut them. They should be able to make the call to open it.
Staff did not make the call to shut them. The commission made the call not to open it.
We told the staff to close the parks. So if we tell the staff to open them, they should be able to have the autonomy to go open it.
We never opened Project Play. That's what we did. We voted not to open it until after they had a ribbon cutting.
And we're having the ribbon cutting on the 12th. So
that's correct.
When it's done, why don't we say, let's just say the ribbon cutting happens immediately thereafter it's open.
Okay. I still haven't left my original suggestion that we let the chairman of Parks and Recreation go and meet with staff and find out what needs to be done and give him the authority to open it or not open it or whatever. That's my suggestion.
Fine with me.
Okay. It looks like it's fine with everybody. Everybody's nodding their head yes, so good. Thank you for taking on that responsibility, Mr. Pickens. They're probably gonna wear you out no matter what you decide. So
I'm getting kind of used to it.
I hear you, Mr. Suggs. Did you have anything else?
No, I promise I do not.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
We're going to continue with commissioner comments at this point. Commissioner Harvey, do you have anything for us today, sir?
No, I would like to say this, Mr. Chairman, you did a great job today running this meeting, and I know it was very difficult, and I appreciate the latitude you've given me to go step by step. And do want to thank our staff. Julianne, in no way, shape, or form do I want to think that I was attacking you. That was not the case. I enjoy the dialogue, and I enjoy that you, I enjoy what you bring to the table, and I appreciate it very much. Mr. Suggs, you put a great team together there, and I truly believe we all have Putnam County's interest at heart here, and we all want to get this money out. I know it's been very difficult. I have a friend that says no good deed goes unpunished, and we all know who that friend is, but you know, hopefully we'll be able to help the community as a collective body that we have been. And I look forward to more of this coming. I look forward to helping our nonprofits and even going beyond that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a great meeting. Thank you, commissioners, for putting up with me today.
Oh, it wasn't no chore, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Goddard. Did I lose you? Commissioner Goddard, are you with us?
I am for some reason the last couple of minutes.
Looks like you're having some problems with us. Are you still with us, Commissioner Goddard? There you go.
I'm here. I'm here.
Right, do you have any comments for us today?
Very quickly before I zone back out again. Chairman, I want to tell you, you are very impressive handling this meeting, the meetings the way they are being virtual. I know it's difficult and you're doing a fantastic job. Real quick, again, I know every commissioner is going to tell the same thing, but the staff above and beyond getting this paperwork together for us. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Goddard. Commissioner Rawls, do you have any comments today, sir, before we adjourn?
I do. And, you know, I'll echo everybody's sentiments as far as the meeting. This is a very difficult meeting today. And obviously staff has really been working hard lately to get this information pulled in. But I do have some questions regarding expenditures that we're claiming on the CARES Act money. I've got some concerns that, so we're showing north of $400,000 as of when this report was given to me. 434,000. A lot of payroll. Probably, I'm going to guess 80% of it's payroll. And then there's a lot of food. We're buying food for staff. I'm trying to figure out why we're paying for Bradley Steakhouse and Muscle Whites and Papa John's and all these expenditures for groceries. Why is that CARES Act related? And why are we taking that money away from the public for our staff to eat? I just don't understand that. I'm looking for an explanation. I'd also like to know what Lake May Farm Market is, because we've spent, from what I can tell, over $12,000 on a farmer's market. Is that all food for our staff, or what's that for?
Well, I can answer that one. Lake May Farmers Market was a catering service. When COVID first started, they closed the EOC and they weren't letting a lot of things come in and out of there because they were worried about stuff coming in. So they started feeding the nurses and the staff that were in the EOC that they weren't letting out. So that's what that was for. But it was cut off way back when we turned down the EOC a couple of months ago. Julie, did you have some more further comment?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Rawls, I think that when you first look at a disaster expense reconciliation, as this may be one of the first that you've looked at, it might help you to sit down with myself or even the clerk's office, because what you're seeing is simply budgetary encumbrances right now and some expenses, and they've all been placed in one pot of money. Not a single dime has been allocated to the CARES Act. Not a single dime has been allocated to FEMA. That's something we go through as the disaster progresses, and we get clarification from all of our funding sources as to what would be eligible and what's not. So we would look first at FEMA, because those funds are very easy That's something that the county deals with all the time, as often as we have a hurricane. And then we would pull those expenditures out and reimburse them via the FEMA funding. And then we would look again to see what is remaining, what actual expenses are, not just the budgetary encumbrances, and then what would be eligible under CARES. But remember, when we accepted the CARES money, the plan of action was to get us kind of an overall plan and then let the board determine what would be billed against CARES. So to date, the only thing that's been board approved to bill against CARES is the business program, which we've allocated $3 million to. So you're seeing an initial report very, very early on of how we try to capture disaster-related expenditures so that we can maximize the reimbursed funds back to the county. So at first, our blanket is very large, if you will, and we scoop everything we can. And then as we get more guidance on what FEMA is going to allow for which disaster, then we'll begin pulling things out.
All right, so back to my original question. Why are we feeding staff? So we budgeted payroll prior to the disaster, prior to the pandemic, whatever you want to call it. We budgeted payroll to pay our people. I understand that we're encumbering some overtime. That's a whole different conversation. At the same time, those folks are responsible for feeding themselves. That's why we pay them a salary. Is why is it that every day we have pizza boys, Bradley?
We're losing you again, Commissioner Rawls. Hello. Commissioner Rawls, are you with us?
I'm on the list right now, and this is a list. This is why we shouldn't be meeting virtually. Can you hear me? Hello?
I hear you now.
Okay, so my question is, why is it that we have to pay for our staff to eat when we're not paying for all of our employees? Everybody's not getting to eat lunch every day or whatever it is that was being eaten, but we're talking tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And if the money is taken out of CARES Act, or if it's taken out of FEMA reimbursement, which at the last meeting we were told FEMA was not going to be reimbursing, so we're taking money straight out of the public's money that's intended for the public.
Yeah, we lost you again.
That we already budgeted for, and my heart.
Yeah, it sounds like we lost you again.
Heartburn is CARES Act said. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
All right. I guess what I would like is a written explanation as to why our staff has to be fed, and why we're spending all this money on that, as well as the other expenses that were placed. Because if you break them out, we have an enormous amount of money in food and payroll that's already covered in the budget.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Commissioner Suggs, would you get with him and try to answer his questions, please?
Yes, sir. We'll schedule some time to meet with Commissioner Rawls and try to go through and answer whatever questions we can answer. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further comments? Hearing none, this meeting is now adjourned.
Have a great week.